we are now live.
Okay. Good morning and welcome to the May 21st business meeting of the LA County Civilian Oversight Commission. I'm Chair Hans Johnson, calling this meeting to order at 9:13. We indulged a little bit of background and a little bit of technical preparation here, calling this meeting to order. And we will start, as we have traditionally, with the LA County official land acknowledgement, as adopted by the Board of Supervisors in 2022 and updated just last fall. The County of Los Angeles recognizes that we occupy land originally and still inhabited and cared for by the Tongva, Tataviam, Serrano, Kij, and Chumash peoples. We honor and pay respect to their elders and descendants, past, present, and emerging, as they continue their stewardship of these lands and waters. We acknowledge that settler colonization resulted in land seizure, disease, subjugation, slavery, relocation, broken promises, genocide, and multi-generational trauma. This acknowledgement demonstrates our responsibility and commitment to truth, healing, and reconciliation, and to elevating the stories, culture, and community of the original inhabitants of Los Angeles County. We are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on these ancestral lands, and we are dedicated to growing and sustaining relationships with Native peoples and local tribal governments, including, in no particular order, the Fernandino Tataviam Band of Mission Indians, the Gabrielino Tongva Indians of California Tribal Council, the Gabrielino Tongva San Gabriel Band of Mission Indians, the Gabrielino Band of Mission Indians Kij Nation, Yuhaviatum of San Manuel Nation, San Fernando Band of Mission Indians, the Coastal Band of Chumash Nation, the Gabrielino Tongva Nation, and the Gabrielino Tongva Tribe. To learn more about the First Peoples of Los Angeles County, please visit the Los Angeles City County Native American Indian Commission website at lanaic.lacounty.gov. Today's agenda includes, but is not limited to, several updates on the Sheriff's Department's activities, policy changes and implementation of, also a roundup of significant incidents and events, some crime stats, a status report on meet and confers, and on in-custody deaths. We'll also have a detailed presentation on the Johnson Settlement Agreement, stemming from a case filed 18 years ago and settled 12 years ago, and a presentation on human trafficking trends, which we're very glad to be able to provide a forum for this informative update. We'll also have an update from the Office of Inspector General on their oversight and monitoring activities. It's great to have OIG staff here with us, along with the Sheriff of LA County. Welcome, Sheriff Luna. And we'll have action to approve a proposal for the enhancement of the Commission's internal procedures in handling and following up on Board of Supervisors motions. While we encourage community members to share what they believe to be deputy misconduct, it's important to note the Commission is impaired in its ability to investigate complaints or review LASD's investigative files or confidential information. We aren't allowed to receive information that regards complaints from the OIG, according to some interpretations. So please know that while we continue to work on changing these circumstances and impediments with enactment and enforcement of AB 847, state law, effective earlier this year, among other policies, we still will do our job diligently of shining a light, finding facts, and providing a forum for the public to build bridges of understanding and public trust. With that, I want to recognize our community specialist, Robert Flores, who will explain our rules for making public comment. Robert?
Before we proceed with public comment rules, I'd like to reiterate that we are providing real-time AI interpretation of this meeting that supports more than 50 languages. Here's how you can access Wordly. On our meeting agenda, you'll see a QR code and a URL. Scan the QR code and click the URL, then click on Attend. Once you have chosen your preferred language, translated captions will appear automatically on your device. Virtual meeting attendees can listen to the translation in real time by unmuting the speaker icon. Attendees here in person will need to use their earbuds or headphones. To ensure a productive meeting for all, please follow the code of conduct as follows. Speakers must cease speaking when their allotted time has ended. Public comment must be related to the agenda item and be within the commission's jurisdiction. Public comment does not include the right to engage in dialogue with the commission. Please be respectful of the views expressed by the speakers, staff, and commission members. Please refrain from profane, personal, threatening, derogatory, demeaning, or abusive statements. Do not disrupt the orderly conduct of the meeting. A person engaging in conduct that disrupts the meeting is subject to being muted or removed from the meeting. Now I'll go over the guidelines for making public comment. Those wishing to speak in person, please turn in your public comment card here. Those attending this meeting remotely, please use the raise hand feature on WebEx. If you're on the phone, please press *3. Each person called up to provide public comment will have up to 2 minutes to speak on the agenda item. The chair has discretion to change the allotted time due to time constraints. Non-agenda public comment will be heard near the end of the meeting. Now I will announce the rules in Spanish. Buenos días. Le damos la bienvenida a esta reunión a miembros de la comunidad que hablan español. No tenemos un intérprete, pero sus comentarios serán traducidos al inglés para la comisión después de la reunión. Si quieres un intérprete en el futuro, puedes enviar una solicitud 48 horas antes de nuestras reuniones. Si desea hablar en persona, completa una tarjeta en la mesa que dice comentarios públicos. Si desea hablar por WebEx, levante la mano. Si desea hablar por teléfono, presiona *3. Simplemente diga la palabra español antes de comenzar y le diremos cómo proceder. Le daremos 2 minutos para sus comentarios públicos. Gracias.
Thank you, Robert. And before we proceed, I just want to note that if you are feeling a little close and maybe a little warm in here, you are not alone. We are dealing with the turning off of the heat, which was on, and I think we are getting a little bit more air conditioning as the last few minutes pass. So we are working on the climate control, and we appreciate the graciousness of our hosts here at St. Anne's. Robert, can you please call the roll of commissioners for attendance purposes?
Co-Vice Chair Arthur Callaway.
Here.
Commissioner Irma Cooper.
Here.
Co-Vice Chair Luis S. Garcia. Commissioner Patricia Giggins.
Here.
Commissioner James P. Harris.
Here.
Commissioner Jamon R. Hicks.
He's excused.
Commissioner London McBride.
Here.
Commissioner George Newhouse. Chair Hans Johnson.
Present. I think Commissioner Newhouse will join us shortly.
Okay.
So that gives us present, is that 7?
Yes.
And we're expecting an 8th. Okay, thank you very much. The consent calendar consists of the Commission's April 16th meeting minutes. Much has transpired since then, but with the consideration of the meeting minutes for April 16th, are there any proposed changes from commissioners to those minutes from the previous commission meeting?
I'll move approval.
Thank you, Commissioner Harris. Is there a second? Thank you, Commissioner Cooper. Any public comment on this item?
We do not have any public comments on this.
Thank you, Robert. With that, let's proceed to a vote on the motion to approve the minutes from the April 16th meeting. Can we do that by show of hands? All in favor of the motion to approve the consent calendar, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That item passes 7-0. With that, we have occasion to recognize any families impacted by significant events, including the fatal use of force by LASD. And I want to ask Mr. Flores, do we have any family impact remarks this morning?
We do not.
Okay. With that, it is my pleasure to welcome back to this commission the Sheriff of Los Angeles County, whose time with us here is limited, but we appreciate the diligence of the sheriff in attending our COC meetings and providing his time and resources and staff for feedback and for updates. And we welcome Sheriff Luna's report to the commission. And we look forward to perhaps an opportunity for some questions in follow-up to that brief presentation. Sheriff, welcome back to the COC.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to everyone and the commissioners, Executive Director Mosley, and Inspector General staff, County Council, and members of our community. Thank you for the Commission's continued engagement. We appreciate the opportunity to provide updates and to participate in today's discussion. As you stated earlier, there will be questions, concerns, as there always should be, specifically about custody. So Chief Tanya Plunkett and Commander Coles will be here to answer questions, and I believe they're slated to make a presentation later on in this meeting, so they're here. I appreciate them being here. Before I begin, I want to acknowledge the tragic shooting that occurred on Monday in San Diego. Very extremely unfortunate incidents that happened there. Obviously, we're thinking about the tragedy that occurred, the heroic efforts by the security officer and several others that we believe saved potentially, without exaggeration, saying hundreds of lives that could have been taken. I did participate in a press conference earlier this week at one of our mosques here in downtown Los Angeles, and very happy to see that it was more of an interfaith effort. There were multiple folks there from religions basically calling out the hate that everybody believes was at the core of the attack that occurred. But I do want to emphasize with our community that when we talk about this cliche in law enforcement about see something, say something, it is very critical that folks, if they become aware of anything, specifically in the virtual space on social media, because a lot of people put their feelings on there, that they bring it to our attention. You are our eyes and ears. And I can't imagine, if you know the circumstances of that event, the difficult decision that the mother had to make, because she called the police to report that her son was missing with weapons and a car, and he had had a history of mental illness as well. Very dangerous situation. And so as we move forward, I can't tell you how important it is for people to give us a call when they either read, hear, or see something that they think is suspicious. Let us investigate it. Let us figure out what needs to be done, if anything at all. That is absolutely important. This week as well, we've been assisting with fires in Ventura County. They're very close to the LA County border. We have teams that are embedded at the command post up in the Ventura County with the Sheriff's Department and the Ventura County Fire Department. And depending on the weather and the way the winds do blow, the fire could head right into our county. So we are very vigilant, very engaged, and have many teams on call ready to do whatever we need to do. And other fires have popped up in the general area, and we are assisting whenever we can. Earlier this week as well, I participated in another press conference involving burglary. And this specific incident that we spoke about dealt with South American burglary crews. Very organized individuals. The people that we arrested in the LA County case were all from the country of Colombia and were here on visas. And they came in and they were burglarizing homes in our northern county area. We were working with the Ventura County Sheriff's Department. We arrested several of them. Ventura County arrested some more of them eventually after they ran from their vehicles. But what I highlighted yesterday in yesterday's press conference was this, that these sophisticated crews had jamming devices It looks like a big radio with about 12 antennas on it. And the capabilities of that device is it jams people's cameras and or internet service, so it can take down your alarm and your Ring cameras if they're connected to the cloud. So we're recommending that if you have security devices, that you highly consider getting them hardwired, because they're very effective at using that. We also displayed a camera that was placed in a box wrapped in artificial turf that is placed in people's bushes to surveil neighbors and other homes. And then the use of drones that these individuals are using to also surveil. And then the last piece I'll talk about is that we put out a public safety announcement to encourage people not to post too much of their schedules or their valuables on social media. When we do arrest these individuals, and we do, when we debrief them, when we ask them how they pick their targets, either the homes or the individuals, they're very astute to looking at social media. So if you're going on vacation, maybe call your friends, don't post it, and let them know you're going to be gone for a week, because your friends and family aren't the only ones paying attention to this. You get a new Rolex. I don't have any jewelry like that. Expensive purses. Tell your friends you post that stuff. There's people looking for that kind of expensive things to make money. So we were very successful. I'm very proud of the teamwork that happened with multiple law enforcement agencies in and around Los Angeles County. Collaboration has never been as important as it has been. Over the last 10 days or so, it was National Law Enforcement Officers Month, where we pay tribute to those police officers, deputy sheriffs who lost their lives and supporting their family. So I did travel to Sacramento, and I did travel to DC with our 3 families of our fallen. If you recall, there were 16 children between all 3 of the detectives that lost their lives. So I'm happy to report that we were able to pay tribute and support, and will continue to support the families that we had. We also had, we continue to have heritage events to celebrate the diversity in our county. This past Tuesday, we celebrated AAPI community, or celebrated AAPI, the community, I should say, at the Hall of Justice. The executive director, Charlene Mosley, was there. Thank you very much for attending with us. We did have an academy graduation in the last couple of weeks. So we're happy to welcome some new deputies. We have several other academies that are in line down the road to graduate. We continue to have a lot of community events. I would say the number one reason folks are asking us to go to community meetings around the county is the concern that I talked about earlier, and that's the residential and commercial burglaries. I don't know if you can turn on the news today without either the first, second, or third story being about somebody getting their home broken into, which I'm very sensitive to that. I think it's unacceptable for anyone to break into somebody's home and impact their sanctuary there. But I would like to point out, as important as this is, as much attention as we pay to it, when I look at our crime statistics for the county of Los Angeles, we do have a 12.8% reduction in Part 1 crime, and our burglaries, which are under the category of residential and commercial, we have a 31% reduction. So I don't overhype the stats, because if you've been a victim of a crime, you don't really care about stats. You just care about your home, and I respect that, understand it, and that's why we have an all-out effort to make sure that when people are victims of crime, that we're doing everything we can to support them. And I just wanted to throw out a number as I am talking about statistics. Back in 2022, there were 10,419 burglaries that year. In 2025, there were 8,453 burglaries. So it just shows you that the perception is that everything's going up, but it's actually going the other direction. But again, there's so much attention to it because of cameras, social media. And I just want everyone to know that 8,453, even though it's a reduction, it's still too many. That's 8,453 victims that I wish none of them were victims. On May 6th of 2026, the department participated in the Civilian Oversight Commission's forum on automated license plate readers. We appreciate the commission's leadership in convening this discussion and the community members who shared their perspectives. I want those conversations to continue. I know as I'm going different communities around the entire county, one of the issues that always comes up, and it's a very important and legitimate question, is do we at the LA County Sheriff's Department share information with ICE for civil immigration purposes? And the answer to that is no, we do not. As a matter of fact, when I've met with the CEO of Flock, which is another company that does the same thing, I made it very clear to him that if there was any indication that they would be sharing information in a way that our community would be upset about it, that I would immediately cut my ties with them. And they assured me that that was not going to happen. So in regard to the custody things, as the meeting goes on, my custody staff that I introduced will cover any concerns or questions there. So with that, I stand ready to answer any questions or concerns that you may have.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you for that broad overview and the update on statistics as well. Regarding the San Diego killings on Monday, I just want to note one especially upsetting detail of that horrific incident involving the security guard and involving the testimony by Amin Abdullah's daughter that he had, in many instances, refused to have breaks or lunch because he was so concerned about the possibility of terrorism attacking the mosque. And it raises, I think, it resonates very deeply for many here in Los Angeles County, especially in a time when we have particular religious gatherings being hosted by the President of the United States and use of federal government resources on the mall in Washington, D.C., elevating a very distinct, myopic, limited view of Christianity and elevating one religion over all others. But in a society, including here in Los Angeles County, where we have many religious communities feeling embattled, facing hate crimes, feeling threatened, and facing taunts, harassment, abuse, even on their way to worship services, whether that's people who are Muslim, whether that's people who are Jewish, or people who are adherents of any other faith that may not be celebrated or elevated or extolled by those in positions of authority or stigmatized. Is there anything more, even given the constraints facing the department, that you might do or are doing that deserve to be shared here to make the anxiety and the distress faced by security guards like Mr. Abdullah and his family a little bit less onerous in trying to protect the people going to houses of worship that have felt under fire or embattled here in LA County?
Yeah, that's a very important question. And I know most of our community may say, well, why are we talking about something that happened in San Diego? And I want to point out that San Diego is less than 100 miles from us. But the hate that we know at this early portion in the investigation is something we all need to pay attention to. And you are correct. We are more connected now as a community, as in law enforcement, to events that happen around the world that directly affect us here in Los Angeles County. So what are we doing? Immediately, anytime there's an attack, our intelligence unit is extremely well connected to intelligence sources, not only around the world, but in the country. And through many of our detectives that work there, we're getting very updated and current information on not only what has happened, but even before then, any threats that may be coming in that we should be responding or reacting to or communicating with the impacted communities. So, for example, in the last year, there have been many threats to our religious institutions, houses of worship, primarily around our Jewish community. And this attack recently was on our Muslim community. So when we have this go down, we do direct our intel units to make sure they're getting all the most current information, and then we're passing it down to our investigators and our field deputies, and then our field deputies start increasing their patrols in and around either mosque or synagogues or whatever other impact we have. And when I say they increase their visibility, when I was at the press conference the other day, my deputies were being commended by a lot of the imams there because they were not only driving to the mosque, they were actually getting out of their vehicles, getting out and engaging the community members just to make sure that they're okay. Something unique that the sheriff's department does that other departments don't do is I have a detective that is a Jewish liaison to our Jewish community. And I also have a detective, a separate detective that's assigned to be a liaison to our Muslim community. And those relationships are crucial to understand the feelings of fear and anxiety from the community. And then we are sharing up-to-date information or intelligence with community members on how to better prepare or solidify their locations, whether it is cameras, lighting, extra security. And I'll just end it by saying this, and I said it at the press conference, and when I address these different groups that do security, if you can imagine what it feels like to drop off your kids at a school or a worship center and look in the rearview mirror and you're praying all the way to work or wherever else you're going to think, my God, let this not be the day that someone decides to attack this building only because of the faith that I am practicing or I believe in with my kids. It's just insane when you think about it that way, but we have to. And we are very prevalent in this space and will continue to do whatever we can to make sure our communities, our very diverse communities here in Los Angeles County, continue to move forward without the fear and anxiety that unfortunately has been experienced because of these awful acts.
Thank you, Sheriff. Any questions from other commissioners for the sheriff? First to Commissioner Cooper and then to Commissioner Harris.
Sir, I had a question concerning the fires. I know this is not in your command, but my concern is these fires can move so quickly because of the winds, and our communities have suffered so much with these fires, and now we're looking at more fires. I'm just wondering if any coordination has been with the prisoners who have been trained to be fire workers. Are they helping with this, or have any coordination been done? Because you can never have too much help, because it's going to be our citizens that suffer from these fires and how quickly they spread.
Yeah, so you asked about is there any coordination going on? Let me broaden that and then I'll come back to our inmate community that does assist and does a great job in that arena. So when the fire broke out, which is called the Sandy Fire up in Ventura County, we immediately send folks from both the LA County Fire Department and LA County Sheriff's Department, and we embed people in their command post. That way we're getting the most updated information about the movement of the fire, their challenges, and looking at the recent weather forecast. So then we start preparing here in LA County, and we start placing search and rescue teams on call, our incident management teams on call. We send out scouts to the county line to see if there's anything else that we can do to assist from that perspective. The activation of our inmate crews that do fight fires, even though it's at our facility, it's LA County Fire who directs when those work crews do go out. And by the way, they do amazing work. And LA County Fire can maybe someday come in and talk about specifically about their training and the benefit that we all get from those crews. But yeah, they make the decision about when to and when not to, but they're always prepared. We're always looking at the weather, the combination of wind, heat, and relative humidity. Those three factors. I'm not a fire science expert. I'm not a weather expert, but those are warnings that we receive so that we as a department are also prepared to support LA County Fire and the Office of Emergency Management for the County of Los Angeles.
Thank you.
Commissioner Harris.
Yeah, Sheriff, if we could go back to San Diego for a moment. I know this isn't your investigation, so you may not have the answer to this, but I am very curious to know if the flock cameras were utilized in that investigation from the onset. I know the media has reported that the mother had called law enforcement in 2 hours prior to this happening and mentioned the fact that her vehicle was missing, so they had a license plate, they had a car. And I'm just wondering, is that something that was Flock used? If that's the system they use, I don't know what they use in San Diego, but I'm very curious if we have this resource, was it in this case utilized to its fullest? Because if it had been, that perhaps could have avoided this tragic incident.
Yes, thank you for that question. My limited information that I have thus far, but I can inquire and get more information. The chief of police in San Diego is a good friend of mine. And from what I understand, when I listened to his press conference, he did talk about automatic license plate readers being part of the investigation where they were able to locate the vehicle when they did. I think it was right after he shot at one of the gardeners in that neighborhood. So that technology does become a very critical part, especially when you're dealing with an urgent, emergent matter where you're looking for two kids that are very well armed, and we know their intentions already. And it is a needle in the haystack. That technology really does assist in helping us. And I always go back to this here locally when we had the mass shooting in Monterey Park. The way we were able to locate that suspect and vehicle was through the automatic license plate readers, because we were able to track where this individual was going, and he had already shot up 2 different locations. We were trying to prevent the third from happening, and we were able to because of the technology.
So we don't know right now if that was fully utilized though in the prior to the incident.
I know it was utilized. I don't know to what extent. I would have to get back to you once we find out the facts.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And Mr. Chair, if I could mention one other thing, I know
Yeah.
there's another question. Well, let's go to the question first, because I want to talk just shortly about the World Cup, because that's very critical to our area.
We will kick off that discussion shortly.
No pun intended, right?
So to speak. Yeah, pardon the pun.
Just a quick question. Can you briefly talk a little bit about the correctional care campus presentation that you did to the CCJC?
I am currently the chair to the CCJCC commission, so I did not do the presentation.
Okay.
Assistant Sheriff Hugo Macias, who oversees all of our custody operations, did that. I can make that available to all the commissioners if you would like. But it was an update to where we are in that extensive process. And I want to just make sure people understand, because there were a lot of very good questions yesterday. That is still something we're working behind the scenes and trying to work with and through the board. The board has not made a final decision on what direction they're going to go. But it was an extensive presentation. We have paid visits to what is recognized as some of the better correctional facilities around the country. Because if we're really talking about care first, jails last, I would think that for anybody that is in custody, including one of my family members, I would want them in a facility that is inclusive to the adequate space, healthcare, dental healthcare, mental health care that would help individuals that are uh, uh, remanded into our custody by the courts.
Can you elaborate on that just for a second, for reference purposes? Which custody facilities are being looked at as possible models by LA County in that discussion?
There's
the
a
best of your
brand,
reckoning.
there's a brand new one in Orange County, and forgive me because it wasn't on the agenda, so I wasn't ready to talk about it. I can follow up with the name of the facility in Orange County. It's brand new. And then there is one in the state of Ohio that's being recognized nationally for a lot of the work that they're doing for mental health care and addiction. And that's, as you've heard me talk about in this venue, that I really want to look at the way our in custody population in my care gets treated, specifically when it comes to mental health care, addiction, and any healthcare issues that we need to work towards a better solution than what we have. And again, for clarification, these are only for individuals that get remanded into our custody, not the others that are either mentally ill or addicted who are not in our custody.
Do you know if LASD personnel have visited either or both of those extolled facilities?
Yes, that's what Assistant Sheriff Macias' presentation was about yesterday.
Thank you.
His visits and input and what he shared with the committee yesterday.
Thank you, Sheriff. Commissioner Johnson, the name of the facility in Orange County is the James A. Music Facility. And the Ohio campus is the James A. Carnes Corrections Center.
Those are them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion? We know the sheriff's time is limited, and we may not have the sheriff with us for longer. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, I'll ask you.
Yeah.
And thank you very much. Looking at this report we just received on in custody deaths, it's sobering to say the least. And I know we all feel the same way. We need to get this reduced. 0 is the goal. But I'm looking at this report thinking we need more granularity in this report. I really would like to see from what facilities are these deaths emanating primarily, so we can get a better idea. Is it one facility or 2 facilities that account for the majority of these? And I know this huge number of natural deaths. I fully understand that many people come into our system in terrible physical shape. But that's just really a shocking number, and I'm hoping that your folks are working closely with correctional health services to try and get a handle on why that number is so high. There is a lot of chatter that perhaps one of the reasons is they are not getting the treatment perhaps that they need to get. I don't know that that's true, but there's a lot of people that are saying that that is a possibility. I think we have to look at that as it is a possibility. But we just need a lot more granularity. I'm going to point out the recent report that came out from San Diego County from their Civilian Law Enforcement Review Board, where they paid for an outside analysis of in custody deaths in their facility. It's a very, very thorough report. And there are a lot of lessons from that, I think, that come straight over to us. We don't have to reinvent the wheel on some of these things. So I just point that out. I hope your staff is taking a really hard look at that report because it points out some things that just jump off the page of areas where, there's some things we need to look at here that are happening in San Diego that are probably happening here too, that might help us start reducing these numbers.
Yes, sir. Thank you for asking that question as well. So obviously, we are at 19 in custody deaths. That's 19 too many. You said, I wish I was at 0. Every single death that occurs under my care needs to be scrutinized. Every question needs to be asked. We can definitely get you a more thorough report about where exactly the deaths are occurring at what facilities. I can tell you this, and I don't have the information directly in front of me, that the majority of them are occurring in the medical facilities within the correctional system. The last one that I had was somebody who unfortunately passed away at Cedars-Sinai Hospital because they were gravely ill. And in that process, we were trying to achieve a compassionate release, as we do in a lot of these cases where people come to us when they're very ill. And the court or a judge, it's up to a judge to determine if they're going to sign off on it. But in this last case, the person was there for murder, and the judge would not sign it. Do I blame them? I don't know all the factors the judge is looking at themselves in an unbiased manner. I know the 2 previous ones were in very similar conditions, and both of them had extensive child molestation criminal histories, and the judges would not release them either. So an entire evaluation needs to be done because not everyone who is dying is under those circumstances. So yes, I have asked our custody folks to look at every angle. I also want to mention this, that after our number was at 45 last year, to me, that was unacceptable. So I did reach out to try and get the assistance of the National Institution of Corrections to come in and do almost exactly what you're describing, to get that unbiased assessment. That went up, got approved, and then it sort of got stuck. And I'm in the process of writing additional letters to some of our local federal officials to ask for their assistance to make sure that we get some type of evaluation done across the board of how we can prevent any death in our custody. I want to change it. I really do. And I'm willing to try just about anything. Even I've asked my assistant sheriff in custody to set up a meeting with both correctional health, because they are in charge of health within our custody facilities, and the Superior Court and their decision makers, to even go back in those circumstances where compassionate releases come into play, and see if there's any movement that we can make there. But other than that, please know that body-worn cameras, for example, that I've instituted over the last year, they're not completely deployed yet. The training that is in process, that will have some changes in what we do because everything will be documented. We have just purchased 17 new scanners for people coming in and out of our custody facilities. We've enhanced in the inmate reception center our ability to assess people for mental health. So we will continue to do everything we can within our parameters to work with correctional health, who is our equal partner in this, and make sure that we change this very, very troubling trend.
I note with some concern your mention that that request has gotten stuck. with DOJ. And I want to offer on behalf of this commission to write a letter, perhaps a letter that could be jointly done with our sibling commission, the Civil Brand Commission, perhaps to help in unsticking that worthy request. But I do have to ask, I guess, with some concern and not being completely ignorant of the context in which we continue to operate, are you being, or is the department being, or is LA County being leveraged in any way by this federal administration about requests like this? Are you running into any impediments or obstruction that might be of that kind of order, where there is something being asked in return from your department or LA County for a request made out of an interest of integrity and accountability to the DOJ?
I'm going to try not to sound evasive in my response to you, but I continue to move forward and have adult conversations to make sure that the priority is the people in my care. I don't want to go too far off on a ledge and either criticize or speculate, because I got my hands out asking for help.
Mhm.
And I want to get there. So if you don't mind, I want to continue to work on this very hard because I understand how critical this is to our residents, specifically to the people in my care. It's important. I don't want anyone else dying in my custody.
We share that concern and we appreciate your commitment, Sheriff. Final question here from Commissioner Garcia.
I think just one, I don't know, some more of a comment, but I think, thank you for providing that context of the various justice system stakeholders that are involved in a compassionate release decision. And I think it's important, at least for as an oversight body, recognizing how the partnership and the LA County governance structure of correctional health services role in healthcare, access to care in the jail system, and the limitations, I think, that we're finding in a sense where last year there was a report written by Dr. Gailey that was presented to the Board of Supervisors. And, in that report, it provided recommendations. However, like within our scope, our oversight is with the Sheriff's Department, not with Correctional Health Services. So, getting the adults to the table, it would be interesting for us as an oversight body to look into the budgets and how decisions and staffing on the Correctional Health Services side are happening. And I'm thinking that our commission, we can have some ability to look at that, because that helps us see where there's a disconnect with, screenings and acuity level decisions, and, what's the actual data behind that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. There needs to be good questions asked. There needs to be scrutiny. And when I think of a mother like Vanessa, who has been very vocal and courageous to tell her stories, I think those tough questions need to be asked.
Thank you, Sheriff. Mr. Flores, do we have any public comment on this item?
We have one person signed up for public comment. Two people are signed up for public comment. As a reminder, public comment must relate to the current agenda item number 7, which is items contained in the LA County Sheriff's update. The first speaker is Vanessa Perez. And if Berkeley Donovan could take the cue.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Perez. I'm the mother of Joseph Perez. I find it highly disturbing that MCJ is still open. A healthcare notification was sent to me on April 23rd last month of 2026 for the need of an immediate follow-up for Joseph. I called for a follow-up appointment for him at General Hospital, also known as the Correctional Health Services, and came to find out that this referral had expired, as the original referral for his swollen esophagus was sent out August 2025. We are 4 months shy of a year as of today from the original order. This disappointment over and over again, and the lack of care from this facility and the staff, that you continue to fight to keep this place open. It needs to be shut down. Not only are the inmates with improper medical attention, it's a lack of consideration of the healthcare in a timely manner. These men are forced to drink and bird bath in disgusting water with who knows what inside. Forced to sleep with the rats the size of baby kittens. We should all be ashamed while you're asking for the county for more money to give deputies raises. Deputies that are in your administration that are known to be gang members and obviously have the lack of human regard for human basic decency. Another thing is that I want to direct this to the county council was to stop directing the justice deputies to send me to the COC when you guys know I'm here every month. I am demanding the county to put the industry Indian deputy gang back on the agenda for the board of supervisors. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear from Berkeley Donovan.
Hey, good morning. My name is Berkeley Donovan. I'm the Jails Conditions Advocate with ACLU of Southern California. I just wanted to speak to the in-custody death crisis that was getting discussed this morning. Notably, it was mentioned that folks are dying in the hospitals, which is true. They're dying in the hospitals, but now we know what facilities they're coming from. The public-facing in-custody death tracker online now identifies that 8 of those folks came from Men's Central Jail, 8 of those folks came from Twin Towers, and 3 from NCCF. Someone was as young as 26 years old, so it's hard for me to believe so many of these are natural deaths, given the circumstances and the conditions that they're in these 2 facilities in particular. So as urged by the chair, I would say look to those facilities first, but also in deep collaboration with the correctional health services.
Thank you. That concludes public comment.
Thank you. And we recognize that the sheriff is departing, and we appreciate the other members of the department in senior positions able to represent the department as the meeting ensues and perhaps answer questions as well as present following up on other agenda items. With that, I want to recognize the reports of the commission, and I want to thank all commissioners for the really torrid pace of activity we've had over the last month, which include the celebration of Denim Day at the end of April, an annual recognition that just celebrated its 25th anniversary. 26th anniversary at the end of April, begun and popularized by our own Commissioner Patty Giggins, and now a global recognition of standing up against sexual harassment in all sectors and in all forms. And I want to thank Commissioner Giggins for her continued advocacy to fight sexual harassment and to use Denim Day as a teachable moment, including in our work as a COC and through the COC. We had, as the sheriff mentioned, a very good conversation online involving many community and county-wide stakeholders on May 6th about automated license plate readers. The forum had several panelists from LASD, from the Office of Inspector General, from UCLA, and from CHIRLA. And the forum was held, we initiated this in response to a Board of Supervisors motion from last fall, and we're pleased that this will be the first of several regular or periodic forums about ALPR technology in LA County pursuant to that motion. And the COC is proud to be the point of leadership on these forums, and there are many different aspects of this issue that continues to evolve as ALPRs continue to permeate our communities that we have to continue to watchdog. The Oversight Commission's work involved and actually touched on possible areas of policy advocacy that could stem from this problems being raised by LA County residents, including tracking of individuals and the misuse of such data by any public entity in California for immigration purposes. But there are lots of privacy concerns, including by private corporations' use of ALPRs, that we have to continue to take careful note of and to report on and to push back on, especially given the sanctuary laws of our state and the California Values Act that we have to continue to uphold and ensure its integrity. I also just want to note the very next day, on May 7th, I was joined by Commissioner Harris at the Civil Brand Commission meeting. And if ever there was the purpose or worthy use of the fire emoji to describe an LA County Commission meeting, it was the Civil Brand Commission meeting of May the 7th. Why was that? Well, because the reports that were aired there about conditions in jail facilities were alarming, to use one apt adjective. I think one particularly upsetting report that came up to light in the Civil Brand Commission meeting involved PREA and PREA compliance, an issue of continued vigilance by this commission involving the 23-year-old 2003 federal statute, the Prison Rape Elimination Act, and a report that when investigating some conditions that involved complaints about sexual abuse in jails, even a commissioner of the Civil Brand Commission was facing intimidation by a member of the department, such that the Civil Brand Commission meeting had to involve elevating the name of a particular deputy forward for reporting about that intimidation experienced by a Civil Brand Commissioner in trying to fact find and ascertain the scope of possible violations of PREA at a jail facility. I just want to note that when a commissioner, her or himself, fears for their own safety in the conduct of our official duties on behalf of Los Angeles County, when we are reporting and looking into problems, I think it can raise some legitimate concerns amongst the public about what incarcerated people might be facing, or family members of those people, in trying to raise questions or to raise concerns or report abuse in a facility. And that was only one of a series of reports made during that Civil Brand Commission meeting about unsanitary drinking water, about unsafe, really sickening conditions near water sources, including worms and flies in drains at jail facilities. And I do want to note that the staff of LASD did receive these reports in a professional fashion and without defensiveness. But follow-up action really is the key to addressing these concerns. We know we have sheriff staff who hear them and who commit to handling them, but we are part of that oversight process, and we are grateful for the dogged and determined work of the Civil Brand commissioners in doing that documentation and reporting to watch commanders, to LASD personnel, and to engaging the chain of command and remediation of really disquieting and dehumanizing conditions reported in custody in LA County. We will continue to participate in those monthly meetings of SBC, and I know Commissioner Harris joins me in recognizing the designated authority of the COC in participating in those Civil Brand Commission meetings and the follow-up involved. I just do want to also note that we have a forum coming up in just a few weeks. In just 2.5 weeks, the COC is hosting a forum called Icy Conditions, Know Your Rights, Navigate the Law in LA County on Wednesday, June 10th. This virtual forum, it will include guest speakers from clergy, congressional representation, and community leaders, focusing on constitutional rights, and including the right to film encounters with ICE or other masked federal agents here in our communities, and to ascertain and communicate with loved ones who are detained. Please note that we have publicity about that forthcoming forum on June 10th in our bulletin for this month, and more will be put out to the public to engage those who want to take part. It's going to be a really good online discussion, very timely, as we are noting the 12-month, 1-year anniversary of what Supervisor Janice Hahn likes to call the federal invasion of Los Angeles County early last June. And as we documented at the ALPR forum and the prior forum in April, has altered the lives of more than 80% of respondents on COC surveys, talking about how your plans, your family's travel, your engagement with community organizations, your fears or anxieties about the safety of your children or seniors. More than 80% of participants in our forums report that their lives have been shaken by the onslaught of masked federal agents in our communities over the past year. And I think I speak for all of our commission in noting that we take this to heart, and it drives our programming and our determination to build bridges and be a forum for documenting the experiences and the necessary policy protections for Angelenos as we navigate not only the trouble and the travails that this is causing, but the real life trauma that this is causing Angelenos on a daily basis. I hope that you can join us on June 10th. Finally, I want to note the graph in our report this month. I want to thank COC staff, including Christina Villacorte and Nune Petrosian and Executive Director Charmaine Mosley for the work to have this helpful graph of in-custody deaths, showing that we are on track for a new somber record in in-custody deaths of 51 for 2026. And we also appreciate the role that presenting some of the inside data in a usable, publicly accessible fashion can be to drive discussion and meaningful response to a crisis rightly called out by community partners with the ACLU in public comment just this morning. And I do want to note another anniversary. The 10th anniversary of our commission is coming up. We will be beginning that recognition of the 10th anniversary of this commission. I'm pleased to be joined still by some original members of our commission who've been with us for the entirety of that decade. Commissioner Giggins, Commissioner Harris, thank you for being with us from the inception. Thank you for being links through all of this difficult, demanding, sometimes agonizing, but often uplifting progress in civilian oversight. We will continue this rolling celebration, if you will, all the way through our September meeting. And we look forward to having the public take part in this milestone because it's in part by celebrating anniversaries that we maintain the momentum, that we focus on areas of progress, and that we identify where we've fallen short, but also where we continue to need to press for real civilian oversight here in Los Angeles County against all impediments and against all obstructions to effectuate that mission for this body. I want to thank the executive director and the staff for getting on track this 10th anniversary recognition. We'll be rolling out those dates beginning with our July meeting very shortly. So with that, I just want to note we continue to engage the public in all of our work, including the milestones of this commission. And I turn it over to the executive director for additional updates.
Thank you, Chair Johnson, for your thorough report. I have 4 items to report on, and I'll start with the policy updates. I am pleased to report that the meet and confer process, not for AB 847, but for LASD's unmanned drone policy and the process for reporting outside agency force has been concluded. Thank you, commissioners, for providing feedback on that policy and also on the draft initiation of personnel relationships while on duty or in uniform policy, which was submitted to LASD for consideration. The next item I wanted to report on is commissioner and staff trainings. Since our last meeting, staff joined Vice Chair Garcia for an all-day LASD training on media relations and social media, where LASD staff, including public information officers from different stations, learned different techniques, strategies, laws, and policies for posting on social media and interacting with media and the public. Commissioners Garcia and Newhouse, along with staff, also attended an LASD jail visit orientation, which is required for us to continue to go on unannounced inspections. Once they finalize the orientation video and send it to me, I will share that video with commissioners. The next item I wanted to report on is our community engagement activities and meetings. As Chair Johnson mentioned in his update, we are also planning the virtual sessions for our COC annual conference. So we are also balancing the planning of the conference along with other work responsibilities and duties. Since April's meeting, our community engagement efforts have included the following key activities. In April, we staffed a table at the Gun Safety Teach-In and Resource Fair in Sylmar, hosted by the Department of Public Health's Office of Violence Prevention. Staff also accompanied Commissioner Harris for a tour of the kitchen facilities at Men's Central Jail and Twin Towers. We also accompanied Commissioner Garcia for LASD's media relations and social media training at the Biscaloo Center. Staff also attended the LA Youth Commission listening session, and that was held in the 3rd District. Lastly, for April activities, staff attended the Willowbrook Community Action for Peace meeting and gave a presentation on the work of the commission to the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. In May, the commission hosted the ALPR forum where 116 community members attended. Individuals from the public are still watching the forum online and on the video. Staff attended the LA City Council meeting at City Hall, where the council unanimously voted to end police department's use of pretextual stops. I know staff has been talking about trying to put together another listening session regarding pretextual stops so we can get community feedback. So that's something to watch out for. Staff also attended the Community Coalition South LA's monthly meeting, the Pasadena Police Oversight Commission meeting. Staff accompanied Chair Johnson at the Crescenta Democratic Club meeting, where he gave a presentation on the work of the commission. So thank you, Chair Johnson, for doing that. We also attended, as the sheriff mentioned, AAPR Heritage Month celebration a couple of days ago. And lastly, for May, we also attended and actually presented at LASD's Captain Command College on the work of the commission. Commissioner Harris, I believe it was yesterday evening, attended the Peace Officers Memorial Ceremony. This week, staff will be attending a ride-along at Compton Station. And then next week, staff and Commissioner Garcia will be attending LASD's First Amendment Auditors Course at the Star Center. And then in June, we plan on attending more CAC meetings. And also, as Chair Johnson mentioned, we are hosting the Icy Conditions Forum, and that's going to be on June 10th. We encourage community members to attend that. And then on the morning of June 10th, we will be attending the county's leadership conference. And on the 13th, we plan to table this year's SD2 Juneteenth event, and we are waiting on confirmation. My last item is on updates on internal operations and upcoming commission vacancies and some other items. So next month begins the process for the county's supplemental budget. Requests for fiscal year 2026 through 2027. Supplemental budget process will be limited to critical operational needs only. Requests for services and supplies in the budget will be prioritized, while requests for additional positions will need clearance and strong operational metrics, workload data, and more backup for approval to move forward. While I understand the county's budget constraints, we never had a line item for legal services and have been accruing fees for legal services over the past several months. We will also need laptops for our commissioners and staff who need to replace their laptops. I plan to schedule a meeting with the EO's administrative director to discuss commission needs and what we can possibly ask for in the supplemental budget. Staff is also continuing their work on drafting the day-to-day operations manual. We are aiming to complete this project by the end of June. And we completed our review of the annual report. We are waiting for Chair Johnson's message, so hopefully we can get that finalized and put on a future agenda of the commission. And did you just laugh? And so my last update relates to an upcoming vacancy on the commission that will take place in June. And I really don't want to say this, but unfortunately, Commissioner Giggins will be submitting her resignation letter, and June 18th will be her last meeting. Commissioner Giggins should be commended for serving close to 10 years on this commission. I'm sad to see her go. I was telling her this earlier today. I tried to get her to stay longer, but 10 years is a long time on the commission, and I know she's had a rough time through some of those years, and for that, I apologize, Commissioner Giggins, but I thank you for all your hard work on this commission. And that concludes my report. Thank you, Chair Johnson.
All right, I think it's appropriate to give a round of applause to Commissioner Giggins. And I just want to note with that, we are grateful for both of our original 9 who are still with us. And I just want to give recognition to Commissioner Harris also, whose name appears on the statewide recognition of officers in Sacramento, and to recognize that we have another member of this commission with significant past service in law enforcement, and that's Commissioner McBride. So I'm very pleased that we have that fluency, as well as Commissioner McBride's participation with Post reflected on this broad range of commissioners. With that, I want to ask, do we have any public comment on these 2 reports, Robert?
Yes, we have public comment, not from this, so we missed Yusuf Miller last time from the last public comment, so we'll allow him to speak. Yusuf, you've been unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please speak up.
Okay. This is Yusuf Miller, Saving Lives in Custody, California. And I want to first thank the sheriff for bringing up our mosque attack in San Diego County. And one thing to add to that is that the license plate readers weren't as useful as intended for this particular case. I want to make note, though, that when we do have LAPRs or the license plate readers, that we don't employ them without oversight and policies that will not oppress the community or overstretch their power in surveillance of community that are not committing crime. So it's one of the things to protect the community, which we all want. We are not pro-criminal, but we are pro-oversight and pro-consequence for misusing LAPR for community surveillance, especially with our Latinx brothers and sisters, and also with our Muslim brothers and sisters, and all immigrants, and just people in general with their amendment rights to not be violated. So I wanted to say that. And secondly, on the in custody death rate, we have to close Men's Central Jail. It is itself a death trap, and the programs that for mental health and medical health need to be sharpened. And apparently there's a problem in disconnecting the bridge between mental health and incarceration, and it's costing us lives. So hopefully we take that into great consideration. Again, thank you for the mention of the system that we need to work on in San Diego County. and we do mourn in our community the loss of these 3 martyrs. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That concludes public comment.
All right, thank you. With that, we have some additional reports. Also a good transition to discussion from the Civil Brand Commission, one of whose action items at their May 7th meeting was a resolution to close Men's Central Jail without what has become a customary caveat in such community statements or commission statements, without a named replacement. That is how urgent the Civil Brand Commission sees the deterioration and the decrepitude and the dehumanization of incarcerated people and those seeking to visit them, and employees working in such facilities on a regular basis, that they made that resolution explicit in passing it without a designated replacement. But with that, we have outside sibling organizations ready to report. And I first want to recognize the Office of Inspector General for their report and update with this commission. Do we have Interim Inspector General Eric Bates or a representative with us? Yes, Dara Williams. Okay. Would you like to provide an update in this segment? An update on OIG activities relevant to the commission's work. Of whatever duration you might provide an update would be much appreciated. Please approach.
Right now, we're finalizing our quarterly report. So a lot of the information will be in our quarterly report. There is an update on Johnson in our quarterly report, but I'm going to cover that today. There's obviously the usual deputy-involved shootings. There's also a section on high-risk traffic stops because there's some very what I believe to be well-settled law on conducting those traffic stops at gunpoint. And then so that sort of goes through the legal analysis in a recent case settlement that the department entered for $900,000 for pulling a woman over who was driving a U-Haul cargo van to a donation center. So all of that work obviously continues, and I look forward to publishing the quarterly report. Probably tomorrow. We're working with the department. There were a few back and forths on that. So we're trying to be, collaborative in discussing with them various sections of the report. And in order for them to be able to provide us with a formal response, we want to work out all the kinks before they send us that response. So that's essentially mostly what we've been up to lately. I don't think I have too much else to add. Obviously, you know about the presentation at the Board of Supervisors with regard to deputy gangs, and we're hoping that there is some traction from that discussion with the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you, Dara. Please stay for just a second. Are there any questions for the Office of Inspector General here from other commissioners? I'm going to go out of order here just a bit. Robert, do we have any public comment? I'm going to take public comment separately for this item, given the expectation of civil brand representation shortly.
We do. We have one public comment on this item.
Let's go to that if we can.
Okay. Raquel Derfler, if you could please take the podium.
Good morning, Raquel Derfler with Cancel the Contract AV, but also Check the Sheriff. So recently we had a mother from the Antelope Valley reach out to us needing help for her son who is currently housed at MCJ. So I'm going to share what she had texted us asking for this help. My son is currently housed at Men's Central Jail. He was sentenced to prison, but was called back to testify at a hearing that had nothing to do with him. He refused court, so deputies carried out an extraction order. They beat him up, strapped him to a chair, and took him to court. This was on May 4th. He also has been dealing with boils, and medical has not been on it like they should. He had a cyst on his backside that burst from sitting in the chair. They have not tended it like they should have. Before that, he complained about having a boil on his groin area for weeks. When it popped, it was green and he could barely get meds. So we know from community that this man's experience is not unique, but really what I would like to present to this board is the question of like, why does a family member of an incarcerated person have to know someone to have their loved one receive proper care?
Thank you. That concludes public comment on this item.
All right, thank you, Robert. With that, we are going to shift momentarily to the ad hoc committee reports from commissioners as we await Civil Brand Commission availability. Can we tackle the ad hoc committee reports from commissioners, perhaps starting with the jail conditions and staffing ad hoc under the purview of Commissioner Cooper?
The jail ad hoc committee met yesterday, the 20th of May, to discuss some of the issues currently in the jail, and we also reviewed the civil brand report. We still had questions about the continued problems in the jail and was wondering why the corrections are not being made timely. We have come to the conclusion that we will start pairing up with Civil Brand to do our inspections together so that we can understand everything that they're seeing, because we also have eyes on it at the same time. But we're really concerned that we're not seeing any changes or improvements based on any of our visits to the jail. And these issues are continuing and they're just getting worse. So it is time to take action in terms of closing this facility because it is just unfit for humans and it's an unsafe environment and it's a high risk for lawsuits coming up. We continuously get complaints about inmates not getting proper care, not getting their medications. They're going weeks. I do understand the policy that they don't want family members to provide the medications, but to go 2 and 3 weeks without their medication, and then you're wondering why they're being sent to the hospital. It's very serious, and changes just need to be made in the jails. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cooper, and for flagging the costs that Angelenos continue to pay for not fixing or remedying confinement and custody conditions in LA County. It's not an issue of expense to shift our custody. We're already dealing with huge costs in settlements and lawsuits and litigation that even carries over into the functions of our oversight bodies. So I think it's important to note, as you did, that we are all paying the costs of the holdout and the holdover of decrepit and dehumanizing conditions that are unfit, not just for incarcerated people, but also for the employees of the department. I want to recognize also the legal ad hoc committee. Do we have a commissioner here able to make the report, or should this be on the chair to make the report? I guess I'm pleased to announce that we have moved forward with the legal ad hoc committee in requesting that county council provide the commission with an independent outside legal counsel to assist in enforcing the subpoenas from February 2025, which we've also asked and requested again to be enforced as of January without compliance. Following the request, County Council indicated it would not be able to appoint outside counsel who would operate independently of the County Council's office. So the Legal Ad Hoc Committee has been working to develop our own independent outside counsel in effectuation of the April resolution passed unanimously by this commission. And we're looking to have that counsel advise and represent the commission directly without county council's direction or possible interference, and to support the commission's efforts to enforce the subpoenas under state law and under Measure R here in LA County, passed overwhelmingly by LA County voters 6 years ago. The committee will continue to provide updates as this work progresses. With that, I want to recognize again the Commissioner Cooper to make a brief report on behalf of the nomination ad hoc committee as we look forward to the commission's own elections of officers coming up this summer.
Yes, the nomination ad hoc committee met on May the 14th to discuss the slate of candidates for the fiscal year of 26-27. After the discussion, the ad hoc committee agreed to request that the governance ad hoc committee review the commission's bylaws. Because at the present time, we have 2 vice co-chairs, but it was not put into the bylaws, and there is no succession plan if the chair should leave early. So we want the governance committee to clarify what the succession plan will be clearly, and also to identify who is the first vice co-chair and who is the second vice co-chair. So there will be a clear succession policy. So once the governance committee give us some clear guidance on that, we will vote as a commission, and then we'll go forward with the nomination slate. Again, open it up now that it is clear what those duties will be for the first and second vice, and give very clear information in terms of how much outside time that they will be needed to serve in addition to the normal COC committee meetings.
Thank you, Commissioner Cooper. We try to avoid all forms of vice on this commission, but we have welcomed 2 co-vice chairs, and it's been a help, I think, to the continuity of governance of this commission, and we look forward to formally incorporating that into our bylaws. And thank you for the helpful nudge in that direction to codify what has been the practice of this commission for the past 2+ years. I will just note on behalf of the Technology Ad Hoc Committee, we did have the ALPR forum, and we are continuing to advise the department on technology-related policies that are coming up, I would say, with increasing frequency. And we're also looking at AI-related policy of the department, and are continuing to advise the department as it relates to incorporation of AI into its operations. There are a number of areas, including the writing of reports and draft reports, that this commission has expressed concerns about, as that inroad to accessing or using AI for documentation and much of the formal paperwork of the department continues to get used in that way. We are looking at that critically, and we're glad that the department continues to reach out to us for guidance and constructive criticism in that area. With that, I think we are through our ad hocs. Is there one more that we have? Oh, yes, we have initial ad hocs. The Budget Ad Hoc Committee. Commissioner Harris, is there a report from the Budget Ad Hoc?
Just a short report. The committee continues its work related to the Sheriff's fiscal year 26-27 budget priorities and unmet needs. Following our adopted staff report, we did receive a response from the department acknowledging the receipt of our recommendations. They thanked us for highlighting their identified budget priorities and funding needs. And just as a reminder, this budget process is sort of a moving target. It's ongoing. We're not anywhere, well, I won't say we're not anywhere near. We're approaching the finish line, but there's still a lot of time to make modifications. The department had indicate that it is their intent to continue to publicly post the 5th month written budget status report as part of its commitment to transparency. And we just appreciate the commitment from the department and their cooperation with the subcommittee.
Do you also have any action to report on behalf of the Deputy Gangs and Deputy Cliques Ad Hoc Committee?
Nothing other than a couple of commissioners did in fact attend the Zoom meeting one of the candidates for sheriff put on last week. It was interesting in that didn't hear a lot of new information, but there was some public comment that was a little divergent from what we'd heard before. More in the form of I won't call it an apology, but maybe an explanation of their perspective of what this all means. Needless to say, the gang ad hoc, we have not done away with it, gangs or cliques, but we are not ceasing in our efforts. We intend to cooperate and collaborate with OIG in their efforts moving forward. And we hope to bring together the ad hoc committee to have a further discussion of the items that are the areas that still, in fact, plague the department.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do we have any report from the Complaints Ad Hoc Committee? Co-Vice Chair Callaway.
Yes, sir. So the Complaints Ad Hoc Committee is continuing to work on the complaint system modernization project through collaboration with the commission staff, OIG, Microsoft, and the project management team. We are going forward. We're looking for the review and approval of the business requirement document, which is going to set the requirements for what this actual complaint tracking system is going to do, because we need to have more ability to have oversight on when a person makes a complaint, what is all the checkpoints that need to happen, and is it overdue? So like if you make a complaint, the station is supposed to contact you within 30 days. And so if we had a system that would notify us as these complaints are either overdue or that they're being answered quicker than normal, then that's something that we can begin to talk about monthly based on this new system. So I would like to thank the staff for keeping on top of this, and we should have more to report soon, and it's very exciting.
That's progress, but as with so much work of this commission and within the county, it takes patience and perseverance to make that progress. So we know you've been at this for more than a year, and we appreciate that update. And the stone moves up the hill towards the top without crushing all of the helping hands helping to get it there. I think with that might conclude our ad hocs. Oh, I'm sorry. And Co-Vice Chair Garcia, I apologize for missing that.
So the ad hoc's work, protection of media and demonstration directives follows the board's directives asking LASD to report back within 30 days on use of force policies and trainings related to protecting journalists at protests and to develop a report back within 30 days on clear, accessible protocols so all journalists, regardless of immigration status, can safely report incidents or file complaints. The motion also asks LASD to request COC feedback before finalizing the written reports and to present final findings and protocols at a COC meeting within 90 days of completing those directives. Consistent with that process, LASD provided the draft policy to the ad hoc for feedback, and The ad hoc has completed its review and provided feedback back to LASD.
Would you say that that retires the purpose or puts the committee on track for sunset, or are we not there yet? Are we more like in the afternoon before twilight?
Yeah, I think we're still in the afternoon.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Is there any other ad hoc that I might have inadvertently omitted? Okay. Seeing none, we can shift to the report, much anticipated, of the Civil Brand Commission here today. And I want to recognize Commissioner Kate Hennigan for a report by the Civil Brand Commission. Kate, are you with us? Kate was with us. We will strive to get Kate on the line.
Yeah, she's not online.
Okay, well, let's.
Oh, she is now.
Okay, very good. Kate, are you with us? Welcome to the COC. Commissioner Hennigan, the family Von Trapp.
We're working on getting her on the screen.
Okay, sorry for the Sound of Music reference there. Yeah.
It's a song.
Yeah.
Okay.
With that, I'll take public comment on any of the. There we go.
Hi, guys.
Hey,
Thank you,
Kate.
Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner
Hi.
Hennigan, for joining us.
Thank you for having me, commissioners. I'll just get right into it. At our May 2026 meeting, the Civil Brand Commissioners reported on 6 unannounced inspections. Findings included ongoing issues with safety checks, barriers, access to complaint forms for custodial and medical issues, and inadequate PREA compliance, as well as a lack of professionalism by deputies during inspections. The Commission also unanimously passed a motion to support, as a commission, the closure of MCJ and not rebuilding another locked facility in its place. Lastly, we approved the Civil Brand Commission's 2025 annual report. The report highlighted findings from 46 unannounced jail inspections conducted by SBC commissioners throughout the last year. The inspections outlined in the report documented persistent and systemic issues, including inadequate medical and mental health care access, unsafe living conditions, staffing shortages, delays in grievance resolution, and ongoing threats to the safety and dignity of incarcerated people, particularly women, LGBTQ individuals, and those serious medical and mental health needs. SBC 2025 findings underscored the urgent need for sustained accountability, structural reform, and immediate corrective action. The report's key recommendations included, and I'll just go through a few of them, but we're happy to provide you with a report if we haven't already. An urgent review of conditions in the jails contributing to the surge in jail deaths at the end of 2024, in particular drug deaths. Review of the policy decision not to increase scrutiny of LASD staff to determine whether they are bringing drugs into the jail. Mandatory and significant mental health training to ensure sheriff's deputies provide a care first response for those suffering mental health crises in the jail system. A complete review of the safety check process with mandatory retaining of all jail deputies and documented supervision by senior officers to ensure that deputies engage in proper checks of people incarcerated in the jails. A significant increase in the amount of diversity of education-based incarceration options at Men's Central Jail and Twin Towers Correctional Facility, and the provision of Spanish language options for education-based incarceration at all of the facilities, including Century Regional Detention Facility. The urgent hiring of medical professionals, including especially psychiatric professionals, and a review of pill call to make sure pills are properly distributed to those incarcerated in the LA jail system. And then finally, the immediate closure of Men's Central Jail. And that concludes my report, and thank you again for the time.
Before you go, could you just comment on the resolution made by SBC about hesitancy or outright resistance to drug screening of LASD personnel. Can you elaborate on that and concerns raised by SBC about that reluctance or resistance?
Sure, Hans. Yeah, and we can also put together a memo for your commission. Sadly, I was not at the last meeting, but so I don't have I was not there. I need to go back and listen. But I mean, just in terms of the previous meetings and conversations, you know, the sheriff's department has been there. Like, you know, there's litigation and they haven't been able to say much, so we don't have more information, but definitely a reluctancy to comment and to share information on it, that we've seen, you know, through the last few months, years. But
Thank you.
I'll have Chair Broder, who really spearheaded this effort, you know, get you guys some more details on that ASAP.
We have noted the department's adherence to or insistence on its own policy prohibiting controlled substances in custody or in any LASD facilities. However, we continue to see a rise in jail deaths from narcotic overdoses that raises questions about the origins of those narcotics in our jails. And we've also noted repeat warnings by the staff of SBC or the commissioners of SBC, as well as by commissioners and staff of this commission about the lack of full screening and accessing our facilities. So there is a continued need to monitor that gap in screening and also the possible linkage between narcotics in our jails from sources not yet fully identified and the crisis of jail fatalities stemming from overdoses. So just note that we appreciate the partnership of SBC in continuing to scrutinize this problem and to address the real sources of narcotics in our jails, which I think we need to zero in on and make progress on before resorting to slapdash or haphazard targeting of possible routes, such as mail or hard copy communication with incarcerated people before clamping down on those channels of communication with isolated and highly vulnerable incarcerated populations. I just want to ask, are there any other questions by commissioners for Commissioner Hennigan? Seeing none, thank you, Commissioner Hennigan Ohanesian, for being with us. We look forward to your continued dialogue and reporting and the partnership that we continue to build with you and your fellow commissioners.
Thank you. Right back at you. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.
Are there any questions or public comment? Mr. Flores?
We do not have any public comment on this item.
With that, we will have a momentary, we'll have in recess until 11:05. Please be back for continuing our agenda at 11:05. We're in recess. All right, we're back. Thank you, commissioners, and thank you for our special guests who are here with us. We have a really valuable educational presentation today on the Johnson Settlement Agreement and our periodic update on settlements involving the Sheriff's Department. Really important to our oversight work and to Los Angeles County and public safety in LA County. This Johnson Settlement Agreement, as folks know, stems from a lawsuit in May of 2008 that culminated in a settlement agreement just before the 2014 election on Halloween of 2014, involving violations of the rights of people with disability and access to a series of services, assistive devices, and availability of basic protections in custody settings in LA County. Some of those involve monitoring efforts. Some of the work to enforce the Johnson Settlement Agreement involves ongoing monitoring about accessibility and accommodation requirements in LASD jails. We have invited today some guest speakers from the Office of Inspector General, the Sheriff's Department, and the ACLU, and we'll hear all three presentations before opening up the floor for commissioners' questions. That's going to conclude, or that's going to ensue after the final of the three speakers. Our first guest speaker for this update on the Johnson Settlement Agreement from 2014 is the Chief Deputy Inspector General, Dara Williams. Dara, welcome back for our discussion of settlements and for this update on the Johnson Settlement Agreement in particular.
Thank you. So just to start off, I think what's really important to note here is that the Johnson Settlement Agreement arose out of Americans with Disabilities Act violations. So we talk about the settlement agreement, but I think what's really important to note is that there are actually laws that are being violated because of a failure to comply with the settlement agreement, specifically with regard to mobility assisted devices that are reasonable accommodations under the Americans with Disabilities Act and physical plant improvements. That being said, that based on the settlement agreement, the department has made some progress, and there are some compliance measures that have already been excised from the agreement because of substantial compliance. We do also have new outside counsel on the matter, and I would have to say that I think that the relationship between the Office of Inspector General and counsel on this matter has improved, and I think that there is a sense that there will be future collaboration and that there will be a concerted effort to get the department into compliance. Part of the problems in the past also deal with, after COVID, there was a problem with the physical plant expert. Ultimately, that physical plant expert did not get to do and report on an assessment of the facilities. Another physical plant expert was hired, and he opted out of doing it, I think because he felt that the requests were outside of his expertise. So the parties are working on getting a physical plant expert that will address the deficiencies. And when we say physical plant, we mean the jail, that will figure out where are their deficiencies. Part of the reason there are deficiencies, even though there have been some installation of grab bars and things of that nature in the physical location, is that because of the number of class members that have mobility issues, people are being housed outside of the ADA areas. So the housing has expanded and includes that people are not in a particular location that is better suited for people with mobility impairments. So I'm going to give a brief summary of basically the remaining provisions that are most notable. And some of these are really low-hanging fruit. so to speak. For instance, the town hall meetings. The town hall meetings have certain requirements for conveying programming to people in the Johnson class, as they're called. And a lot of the problems here are just really inadequate record keeping or not providing the flyers to the people at the meeting. And I think just with a better organizational system, which is essentially what we've said, it's just like document, document, document. If the department is able to message out to line staff what has to be done and to then document that it was done, that's a pretty easy fix on the town hall meeting. So that we're hoping that we can work together. And to be fair, we're the monitor, but because we're also OIG, we're obviously in the jails often, we attend meetings often, and so we are able to sort of keep our finger on the pulse as to what is improving. So we've suggested that simply better documentation would improve this, and better communication with line staff about what has to be done. As far as the physical plant improvements, while there are some grab bar and shower benches, there are a number of areas where people still have mobility issues. People have dragged regular chairs into the shower because they're unable to stand. And then in another area that's really called reasonable accommodations, it's noteworthy that people have trouble getting up the stairs for the bus. People have trouble because the escalators or elevators are broken. And if escalators and elevators are broken and they can't walk up and down the stairs, they miss their court appearances. So one of the key things is to make sure that everyone is adequately assessed to get a mobility device. And I'm sure as many of you are aware, if you, for instance, have arthritis, one day you could feel okay and the next day you might not feel okay. But the key thing is that if you have arthritis and you need a cane some days, you need to be assigned a cane all days so that you have it on the day that you need the cane. And then with regard to the grievance system, their department is working on sort of automatic improvements by using their custody inmates grievance application system so that it automatically flags ADA grievances. And the reason for that is that part of the Johnson agreement is that ADA grievances are appropriately flagged as ADA grievances and dealt with accordingly as ADA grievances. So that pretty much covers where we are, but as I indicated, it is our hope that we can work with the department as much as we can. And obviously there's also the ACLU, who is counsel for the plaintiffs, but also really serves as independent oversight as well for the department in an more advocacy-based manner. We're hoping that there can be movement forward because we would like the department to be compliant so that they don't have this settlement agreement anymore, and that at some point in time it is actually sufficiently concluded that the court no longer has to monitor progress.
Before we go on, I do just want to ask, we're going to try to reserve questions for the end, but one salient question about whether the facilities limitations are in any way a lawful excuse under the settlement agreement. And you've noted the irregular department facilities and some of the unintended reliance on those facilities. In any way, is that an excuse or a deal breaker for the department's obligations?
My understanding is that older facilities are grandfathered in, but that once you start making improvements, that then the grandfathering in is no longer the case and that the facility must be ADA compliant. But when I say grandfathered in, it still has to be ADA. And Ms. Camacho is probably better versed in the law on this than I am, but I will tell you what my understanding is and you can ask her. My understanding is that there were amendments to the ADA in 2012, but certainly the Americans with Disabilities Act, which was implemented well before 2012. I think it was under Bush 1.
It was July of 1990.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure it was George H.W. Bush who put this into who implemented the law. I mean, obviously with the help of Congress. So anyway, the department's required to, make reasonable ADA accommodations. And my understanding is that they are required to make certain improvements in order to accommodate people with disabilities. And then and also actually counsel for the department is here and the department's here as well. My understanding is that if improvements were made after 2012, that they would have to be compliant with the act as of the 2012, as of what it required in 2012. And my understanding is it has not been amended since then. But this is not my expertise. And so I would actually ask the other two entities presenting here if I'm right.
Thank you. With that, we want to note that there was an effort to exclude the ACLU from participation in this panel, and we're all the more grateful to have the ACLU with us, given the expertise noted in the OIG's comments. I do want to recognize now, on behalf of LASD, Commander Christine Coles is with us to provide the Sheriff's Department's update on the Johnson Settlement Agreement and the monitoring of conditions under that agreement. Welcome, Commander Coles.
Good morning or good afternoon. Thank you to all the commissioners.
Close, not there yet,
thank you.
but close.
Thank you. I'd just like to start off by saying that the department does truly appreciate the collaboration that we have with the OIG and with the ACLU. So any comments or things that they bring to our attention, we do take it seriously, and we do embrace that inmates in our care and our custody are entitled to have accommodations under the law. And so we do acknowledge that. So I do have a PowerPoint for you. Some of it will restate some of what Dara was talking about. However, I'd just like to start off by thanking you. I'm Commander Christine Coles. I'm over the Custody Compliance and Sustainability Bureau. I'm going to just give you a broad overview of what led to the case. Johnson v. County of Los Angeles, it's a class action lawsuit, which was filed on behalf of LA County inmates with mobility impairments. Next slide, please. The plaintiffs in the case argued that the inaccessibility issues within the jails violated the rights of mobility impaired inmates under the Americans with Disabilities Act. The case was settled in 2015. And at the time, the department agreed to reforms to provide LA County inmates with mobility impairments meaningful access to programs, services, and activities which were already provided to other non-mobility impaired inmates. The Office of Inspector General was assigned as the monitor in the case, and they file reports twice each year on the status of the department's compliance with the agreement. Next slide, please. So the settlement agreement consists of 49 provisions. 38 of these provisions have been severed from the agreement, and the department is no longer subject to monitoring under those. Of the remaining 11 provisions, the department has achieved sustained compliance with 5 and partial compliance with 6 provisions. The provisions which are in partial compliance involve providing notification of available programs to class members during town hall meetings, installation of additional grab bars and shower benches in areas where class members are housed, construction of additional ADA compliant beds, designating inmate grievances as ADA even if the inmate did not mark the grievance as ADA. And lastly, the response time for ADA grievances shall be no more than for standard grievances. Lastly is class members shall receive reasonable accommodations when requested and as prescribed by medical staff. And when we talk about reasonable accommodations, we're talking about things such as having a lower bunk, extra blankets, getting extra time to perform functions that other inmates need to perform, such as going to yard, having shower benches, and having cells with accessible features. Next slide, please. Pursuant to the agreement, the department's required to meet some key obligations related to the Americans with Disabilities Act, including ensuring class members have equal access to programs, physical therapy, and outdoor recreation, making physical improvements to areas where class members are housed to include accessible toileting areas and installation of grab bars, ensuring class members receive reasonable accommodation when they request it, and physical therapy as prescribed by a medical professional. Staffing jail settings with an ADA coordinator. Developing and providing ongoing custody staff training related to ADA policies, and participating in ongoing oversight by the Office of Inspector General and completing annual compliance reviews. Next slide, please. The LSD has implemented numerous changes to strengthen their compliance with the agreement, including updating policies to align with the ADA and settlement agreement requirements, developing a system of ongoing line staff training related to ADA and mobility impaired compliance, such as conducting briefings with newly assigned trainees at the jails and posting, cheaters at the staff stations. So employees don't have to look up policy in order to determine what they're required to do. They can have it readily available to them. Improving our inmate grievance processes, conducting town hall meetings on a monthly basis with class members, establishing an ADA coordinator at Twin Towers, Men's Central Jail, and CRDF to regularly contact class members and assist with identifying deficiencies and implement corrective measures when necessary. Additionally, our ADA coordinators that we have assigned to the facilities, we've put lieutenants into those positions. So it's very helpful to have the ADA coordinator be of significant rank. They're commensurate with the watch commander of the facility on the shift. So the lieutenants are able to ensure that any of the inmates' needs can be conveyed directly to them when they visit them on a regular basis, and they can ensure that the inmates get what they need, and they have the rank and authority to actually accomplish that right on the spot.
Could I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Is that a collateral duty or is that specifically their assignment?
Specifically, their assignment is the access to care lieutenant position,
Okay.
but their primary duties encompass ADA coordinator. So they, in addition to ADA coordinator duties, they ensure that inmates are getting to their medical appointments. They're ensuring they have appropriate devices. So that's their collateral title. However, their duties really do.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a full-time job.
Thank you.
Also providing portable shower chairs and installing grab bars in additional inmate housing areas, and distributing thermal clothing to all jail inmates. Whereas the provision had only required that we assign or pass out thermals to class members because they do have some circulatory issues that make them more susceptible to the cold. The department handed out thermal clothing to all jail inmates. And I think that the inmate population, as well as the OIG, has embraced that as a positive change. As the OIG reported in their 10th report, the department continues to make strides in improving conditions for class members, although we are still pushing forward to make further progress in several areas. For example, the department has made advancements in compliance regarding the appropriate designation of ADA grievances utilizing technology. The OIG had a concern that ADA grievances were not being appropriately categorized in the custody inmate grievance application, which we refer to as CIGA, and it resulted in delays in some of the response times to the inmates' grievances. The department updated the application, so now grievances are being flagged if they contain any of 24 keywords that are entered into the database. And so now those are being automatically designated as ADA, so we don't have to rely on a human factor in order to ensure that's being accomplished. In addition, to provide accommodations to class members housed in areas where physical modifications such as grab bars and shower benches have not yet been made, the department purchased portable shower chairs, which were distributed to housing areas several times in 2025 in batches of approximately, I believe, 24 chairs. And also last month in April, we also distributed another batch of shower chairs. And I know that the OIG mentioned that they observed regular, I guess you'd call it maybe lawn chairs. If when you're talking about plastic chairs that the OIG observed, we do have some plastic chairs in the inmate housing areas, which they use to sit at the tables, or they just use it to congregate, sit at a phone. And some of the inmates were using those chairs and pulling them into the showers. However, all the areas where 88 inmates are located have been provided shower chairs. And so we're tasking our personnel with removing plastic chairs that are not designated for that use from the showers and inspecting those areas for the appropriate shower chairs so we know where they need to be distributed.
And I apologize if I can't ask another question. I just noticed, so there is no ADA coordinator at NCCF or at the Pitches Detention Facility?
There is now. We recently, yes,
Okay.
we recently appointed one approximately a month ago.
Is it for the entire facility or just specifically for NCCF?
We have one coordinator for North
Right,
facility,
the whole
South facility, and NCCF.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
he's at all three. Next slide, please. So we do have some barriers to compliance. And when I say barriers, I don't mean insurmountable barriers. I just mean areas where the department has struggled, but we're continuing to push forward to try and accomplish more. Some of the barriers that have prevented us from obtaining compliance are listed here. First, the department, as Dara had mentioned with the town halls and the low-hanging fruit, we've historically struggled with proving compliance with the town hall's provision due to inconsistency in our documentation that we've been gathering from the facilities during the auditing process. To remedy this problem, the department distributed a new form in February of this year that is now going to be used across all facilities. Previously, the forms that were being used, some of them had different checkboxes, some of them you really had to put in a narrative, and so the required verbiage to satisfy the provision was not included because not everyone was getting the information that specific words had to be contained in that form. So we've distributed a new form as of February this year. We hope by ensuring consistent gathering of information and regularly engaging with key personnel that are responsible for conducting the town halls that we can come into compliance with this provision. Another barrier is the aging design of Men's Central Jail, where a substantial portion of the class members are housed. CJ opened in 1963 and consists of a linear design. Cells and rows are very small, cramped, not designed to meet current ADA standards. And toileting areas require substantial modifications to make them accessible for those using assistive mobility devices. Over the past 2 fiscal years, as an example, the cost of maintenance materials at CJ alone has averaged between $3 and $5 million. Although there are limited areas of CJ which have accessible features appropriate for class members, the Johnson class size far exceeds the housing available in those limited areas. So the size of the Johnson class additionally has been steadily increasing over the last 5 years, in large part due to the increased issuance of medically ordered devices. The department recognizes the seriousness of concerns related to accessibility for the inmate population, which is why we continue to propose the creation of a correctional care center. This type of facility could provide services and housing for the medically and mentally fragile, as well as inmates with mobility impairments. Achieving compliance with many of the Johnson provisions requires cross-collaboration with correctional health services, and the Sheriff's Department has been very diligent in fulfilling its role to find a satisfactory solution to the needs of the class members. We continually engage with CHS on a weekly basis, as far as the limitations that CHS is experiencing and barriers that they are experiencing. I can't personally speak to those barriers. CHS would be in an appropriate position to do that. However, we will continue to engage with them until we can see some sort of meaningful progress in some of these areas. Also, we'll continue to engage with the monitor and with correctional health to identify remedies to this increase in the class size. Next slide. So while significant progress has been made, one before that, I think. While significant progress has been made, the department is committed to doing more. So LASD has started having, for quite a while, we've been having weekly meetings with Correctional Health Services and County Council, which is focused on achieving compliance with the remaining provisions. The Access to Care Bureau conducts weekly advisory meetings with facility ADA coordinators, the lieutenants that I mentioned to you, to obtain progress reports regarding strategies which have been implemented and identifying any workflow problems. We continue to conduct ongoing training and education of the staff on the line level. We meet repeatedly with any incoming classes of new hire trainees to inform them right out the gate what their obligations are. We continue to improve our inmate grievance tracking and accountability systems by leveraging technology through SIGA. We've increased the regularity of our self-audits and begun issuing corrective action plans to the facilities that are falling short of their compliance measures. We've initiated an analysis to identify potential facility updates that would improve accessibility for Johnson class members. And we're working with the county's Internal Services Division and Facilities Planning Bureau to explore possible facility upgrades that would improve accessibility for the population. And last slide. Last slide. Okay. So I'd just like to thank you again for inviting us to speak on behalf of the department. We're going to continue to collaborate with the OIG and the ACLU. I feel like we do enjoy a great relationship with them, especially with the Access to Care Bureau and the CCSB. We take all their concerns seriously and we act to rectify them immediately when feasible. I'd like to thank the Commission for their time, and the department looks forward to continuing to work with the OIG to establish compliance with the remaining provisions in the agreement.
Thank you, Commander Coles. And before you leave, could you just answer perhaps what is the guesstimated class size of the Johnson Settlement Agreement class?
Approximately 571 as of April.
Okay. Thank you. And before we move on, I do just want to note, not expecting a full answer or to run it to ground, but just one discrepancy between the ought to and the is. The ought to, as you've outlined under the agreement, involves dignity and respect for the rights of incarcerated people and access to assistive devices, access to outside air, and being able to go outdoors at periodic intervals, to have thermal garments, etc., and to have access to canes and assistive devices, knee braces, etc. But this commission has heard testimony from a number of parties, including our sibling commission with the SBC, about reluctance by deputies to give assistive devices to inmates, of having that be conditioned on something, or having incarcerated people express feeling conditioned access to devices that facilitate their mobility and their access to meals or to medical appointments. And I just want to ask a little bit about the findings and the ought to outlined in the settlement agreement, and the is that we continue to get reports from incarcerated people about having their access to medically necessary, dignity essential, sometimes even life or death accommodations under the law, conditioned or subject to retaliation or the feeling of retaliation from department personnel. And I just want to ask you to, does that come as a shock to you, or how do you reckon with that discrepancy between the ought to and the is?
I wouldn't say it's a shock to me, and I doubt it's a shock to the department, that in some cases, either the monitor or the ACLU may be out boots on the ground and encounter some type of resistance or encounter some of the things that they're talking about. We do, the ACLU and the OIG are very good about reporting those instances to us, getting specific inmate names and booking numbers so we can actually conduct an inquiry, fill out a grievance on behalf of the inmate alleging retaliation, and actually document those incidents. I'd like to say that in some of those cases, we have had concerns, and so those are immediately addressed. In some cases, we were unable to verify some of the information, and so it's not to say that it didn't necessarily happen, but if we have information that documented information that directly refutes an allegation, we will also report that. However, I also feel that it's all about educating our personnel. A lot of the deputies and custody assistants that are working the jails, they're very young. And so they are new to the law enforcement field, and everybody goes through the same academy. However, I think that that's why we are trying to conduct these briefings during jail ops or after they get to the facility, because it's different to be in a 3-month environment with other sworn personnel and, whatever mood is shared there. However, once you get to the facility and you start to learn your actual job and what is your daily expectation, specific job duties, that is where we try to grab these guys and explain to them that this is your obligation. You have an obligation to your employer. You have an obligation to these inmates. You have an obligation to the public that you shall treat them in a humane manner. And there is policy backing this up. So we try to set that tone, and I feel it's successful if you try to educate people as to why they're required to do this.
Thank you. And we'll shift shortly, but in keeping with, I think, an observation we made with the sheriff earlier, we don't exist in isolation. The work and the conditions that the department faces are part of a larger society where the degradation and the dehumanization of people with disabilities is a daily reality. The looking down on, the seeing the impatience, the viewing of people's disabilities as hindrances or nuisances to those who may see their job as to be the efficient or orderly dispatch of people. And people requiring patience or accommodation can sometimes be seen as a barrier or as a hindrance to that duty. And especially when it comes to people in positions of power over others, where sadism and the infliction of harm on others is an inducement and a temptation of situations of authority and unchecked power over others. I just have to note how particularly threatening that perception that leaches in a society that already devalues people with disabilities can be in custody settings. And we can set a baseline of what humane treatment may mean, but I just want to ask, is the training requirement under the Johnson settlement, is that rigorously met, updated, and continued? It's not a one and done or a box checking exercise, is it? And how do the systemic threats of indignity and dehumanization, especially towards people with disabilities in positions of great vulnerability, how can those be overcome? How do you take that personally, and how do you see forth and see fit that that is carried out?
Well, I could tell you that as a captain, I used to be captain at North County Correctional Facility, which is up at PDC. And something that I would convey to all of my employees is that your job here is to provide housing and security for these inmates. Your job is not to determine their guilt. Your job is not to determine if they need to be punished. That is not your role here. Your role is only to provide housing and security, and that is my expectation of you. So I feel that all of the unit commanders send the same message. And in order to reinforce that, not only during jail ops are they getting a portion where they're being explained the ADA requirements, but my Access to Care Bureau personnel, I have an awesome lieutenant who is really like a go-getter, and she is really constantly boots on the ground. She is taking her team along with the Johnson team, which is assigned to CCSB, going out to every single facility and conducting briefings on a regular basis with everyone that is assigned. So they're not only just getting it when they arrive at the facility, they're getting it continually as they're working.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I just want to note that the presence of women in positions of authority is itself a check against that kind of dehumanization and sadism. And I respect very greatly your role and experience within the department. And I want you to know that that's something that this commission cares a great deal about. And gender equity, especially in the department, is a safeguard against the inflicting of harm and the routinization of cruelty.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. With that, I want to welcome back to the COC Melissa Camacho, someone whose expertise has already been heralded by the other panelists. And thank you, Melissa, for being with us today to shed light on the Johnson Settlement Agreement and compliance with it.
Well, thank you very much, commissioners, for having me here today. I am a senior staff attorney at the ACLU, but here today I am one of the attorneys representing the class of people in the jails who are the plaintiffs in the Johnson case. So they are represented by ACLU Southern California, Disability Rights California, and Davis Wright Tremaine. Next slide, please. And the class covers all present and future detainees and inmates with mobility impairments who, because of their disabilities, need appropriate accommodations, modifications, services, and/or physical access in accordance with federal and state disabilities laws. These are our clients, and these are the people that we talk to on a regular basis in the jails and in attorney visits. Next slide, please. And I think it's important to keep in mind the overall goal of this settled lawsuit back in 2015, that all parties agreed that the defendants would provide class members with non-discriminatory and meaningful access to programs, services, and activities. I also think it's important to note that while the sheriff is a defendant in this case, and I definitely appreciate Commander Coles being here today. They're not the only defendant in this case. The county is a defendant, and as part of the county, Correctional Health Services is a defendant. So I appreciate that you all are the Civilian Oversight Commission of the Sheriff's Department, so it's appropriate that the sheriff's here today, but you can only get a portion of what the different barriers are to compliance because only one of the defendants is represented here. Next slide, please. And that is seen very clearly in the class growth. This slide just talks about the class growth in Men's Central Jail. So this is also only over the last 3 years. So back when the case was settled, the class was much smaller. It was only housed in Men's Central Jail in Twin Towers. Since that time, not only has the class spread to CRDF in Linwood, but the numbers have increased within each of the facilities. So you can see that over the last 3 years, the numbers of people in non-ADA housing have exploded in the jails. And you can see that just this year at MCJ, it's flipped. It was under half outside of ADA housing, but as of January of this year, it flipped, and now a full 59% are now outside of ADA housing. Next slide, please. And this is not just an MCJ problem. So there has been a lot of focus and appropriate focus about the conditions in Men's Central Jail, but we see many of the same problems duplicated in Twin Towers and CRDF, where people are being housed in places that are not appropriate for their mobility needs. So Twin Towers has not yet hit 50%, but it is getting there. And CRDF has only a tiny number of beds that are truly ADA. That's just a small dorm in the medical clinic. Anywhere else in CRDF, HOH, MOH, GP, there is no ADA housing in CRDF. Next slide, please. I'm going to focus on only 3 of the provisions that are still out of compliance as a way to try and paint the picture of what life is like if you are in jail today and trying to get your reasonable accommodations. As Dara said, under the ADA are required by law. So the provision says that everybody in custody gets reasonable accommodations. Yes, that's a term in the settlement agreement, but it is required by federal and state law. The next provision, C4, I'm going to get into some physical plant issues. And then the last set that I'll talk about today are the grievance issues. Next slide, please. So today in jail, there are people who need to use the shower and cannot safely access the shower. There are people who need to use the toilet and cannot safely access the toilet. For example, in CRDF, the IRC area does not have an ADA accessible toilet. So if somebody is processed into CRDF in a wheelchair, they have to rely on either custody staff or a kind soul within CRDF to help them onto the toilet to use the toilet in IRC. That is also the case in throughout MCJ and Twin Towers, most often in the non-ADA housing areas, but even in the MOSH facilities, that's the medical outpatient special housing units in MCJ, there's still very limited access to ADA showers if you do not have an ADA shower within your cell. You need to rely on a deputy to come and take you out of your cell to an ADA shower. Over the course of negotiations with county council over the last year and a half, there has been an effort to put in more of a schedule for people to be taken to true ADA showers in MOSH and to kind of quasi ADA showers in MCJ. That is both very it is not working regularly. There are, just I think last week I got a report from somebody saying in MCJ, their loved one saying that they've not been taken to the to kind of what they call the ADA shower for 2 weeks, even though that is something that's supposed to be happening every other day. It can be more pronounced in the medical unit because sometimes people who use wheelchairs permanently also have other issues that make showers more necessary due to catheters and other things. So if you can imagine, you only have a schedule where you can get out to an ADA shower every other day, but you might need to shower every day, and there isn't even, a way to access that. So people often engage in what they call bird baths, where they're just kind of wheeling up or using a cane to get to the sink and just pouring water, on themselves to try and shower in their own sink. And that's not like a couple people, like that's like hundreds of people that are trying to bird bath on a regular basis. We appreciate that the portable shower chairs have been purchased, but again, access is not always possible. Also in kind of the ADA, the quasi ADA shower in MCJ, where people are taken and given, they're supposed to be given some more time and given portable showers to use. Sometimes if there are 10 people using canes taken out to the shower at the same time, but there's only one portable shower bench, then it only goes so far. And there's a lack of CHS involvement here. I think in the state prison system, the medical staff is involved in kind of ticking through all of the different reasonable accommodations that are required by somebody. So if I use a cane, I can get evaluated to see like how many stairs can I walk? Can I use a shower without a bench? Do I need a grab bar? And then that information is taken and given out to the people who are in charge of housing. And we're not seeing that type of involvement here, possibly because there's only so much CHS can do when there's 574 class members and only maybe, and I'll get this on another slide, we don't even know how many ADA housing slots, but fewer than half of those people. We see this issue come up with accessing, being able to access both court and other programming because of broken escalators, broken elevators. People are having to use stairs when they might not need to use stairs, and it can exacerbate their medical conditions. People are even having their DME, their durable medical equipment, removed because it has an expiration date without having an additional evaluation. So you can get your wristband clipped that has like a U on it, and you can say you no longer have a cane, you no longer have a U, and then people are left without recourse because of problems with the grievance system, which we'll get to in a minute. Next slide, please. And as we were saying, there just isn't enough ADA housing, and there's also not a list that the Population Management Bureau even has of cells that have grab bars, so that somebody with even a permanent wheelchair assigned to medical housing at MCJ might not even get a cell that has a grab bar on the toilet because PMB does not have a list of those cells. And so I think it's important to note, again, this is not just a sheriff's department problem. LA County is currently incarcerating people with mobility disabilities, knowing that they cannot house them in accordance with state, federal, and state ADA laws. Next slide, please. So the grievance system is supposed to account for some of these issues. If I need a cane, if I need to use a shower with a grab bar, if I need to go to court and cannot get up the bus stairs to the court, I'm supposed to be able to file a grievance and get that dealt with within 15 days. We've talked about access issues to grievances even in our Rosas lawsuit. They're often unavailable. People experience retaliation for filing too many grievances or for reaching out to class counsel. I also think that not all grievances are filed because you often, especially in MCJ, have to hand your grievance to a deputy, and the deputy is supposed to take it and put it in a box. In the OIG report, in the 10th OIG report, they reported for the month of September 2025, there were 19 ADA grievances filed. 9 of those were filed by the ACLU. I find it completely impossible to believe that of the 574 people, most of whom are not in ADA housing, only filed 10 grievances over the month of March. I'm sorry, last September. Often also this problem with CHS is that people ask for something like a cane and they will be told, oh, you can't file a grievance for that. You have to file a health service request form. As far as I'm aware, CHS, however, does not treat that as an emergency request. So they just get put in line to see medical, and they can go for weeks or months before seeing medical for various issues. And that is not tracked because it's not in a grievance, it's not in SIGA, and so people will end up filing multiple HSRs because they are not getting a response. And then finally, like the grievance system is just not used to create systemic fixes. As what we've seen is that those grievances are not causing, or they're not triggering systemic fixes. So for example, thermals, Commander Coles, mentioned that LASD is now giving out thermals. Some of the issue with that is that people were requesting them and not getting them. until the OIG raised the issue in a quarterly report where an individual, a person within custody, died of hypothermia. And after that, the Board of Supervisors put together a motion saying that thermals needed to be provided to everybody in custody. And so that had the effect of increasing compliance with thermals in Johnson. But again, it's because there was a demand for like a fix of everybody gets it rather than responding to people's request. And I met last week with somebody who showed up not wearing thermals. I said, "Where are your thermals?" And he said, "Well, they searched my cell and they took away my thermals and I've been asking for 2 weeks and I haven't gotten them back yet." Final slide, please. So this is from one of our class representatives, Derek White. He's expressed frustration to me that it appears that defendants have not accounted for growth and are feeling overwhelmed by trying to come into compliance because of the growth in the class. And his perspective, which I think is powerful, is that you have to assume that you're going to have to account for growth, that it's insulting to class members and to the court to say that the growth is something that is going to create a barrier to compliance. That's the end of my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Melissa, and thank you for the detail you provided in your report, which I think greatly clarified a fuzzy picture or a pixelated image that we get around all of our settlement agreements. But I think you made it real in ways that are beneficial to this discussion. I want to open it up for questions from the commission, recognizing that we are over time, but that I do want to have an opportunity for discuss this. First, I want to go for Commissioner Callaway and then to Commissioner Newhouse.
I was just wondering if you know, and I don't know if you do, but if somebody were to fall in the shower and injure themselves and die from that injury, is it classified as something different than an accident because of the fact that it was preventable?
I don't know. I think it would probably, also be what triggered the fall. My guess is if it was like a seizure or something, it would probably be classified as natural. I have heard of many, many, many people falling in the shower. Thankfully, to this point, I have not heard of one of those falls resulting in deaths, but they 100% have resulted in hospitalizations.
And then the last question is there stats on has there been any ADA housing, new ADA housing year to year anywhere? Or is it just, is it static as far as the ADA housing is concerned?
As far as ADA housing that complies with like federal guidelines, my understanding is that has been static. There have been other improvements to try and increase access because even if you don't have ADA housing, it doesn't mean you're exempt from providing reasonable accommodations. So if I, use a walker or use a cane and I need access to a shower with a bench, it isn't an answer to say we don't have enough of those, even if the ADA has different requirements for what type of building you need.
Commissioner Newhouse.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I'm curious as to why we're seeing this exploding number of people who qualify for ADA. There seems to be, I know we're not supposed to call them handicapped, so I'm at that age where physically impaired comes to mind. We don't move around as well. But what is the reason for this explosion, in your view, of people that are being sent to the LA County Jail? And I remind everyone here that folks who are in the charge of the sheriff in the jail generally are pre-trial. They have not been adjudicated to have committed a crime, and we are not supposed to be punishing them. So what is did we just not realize how many ADA individuals were out there before? What's going on?
I don't know, and I will also say that OIG has been asking for CHS and LASD to collaborate on a comprehensive class assessment since its 8th report. We're now at the 10th, and there's been no movement on that, and I think that would help to answer that question. I think it's likely that CHS is assigning more people canes who need them, but it's also just possible that we're kind of seeing a snowball effect of just medical within within LA County can only kind of account for so much. So where you would have somebody with a cane who comes in because they got shot at the point of arrest, they might be able to get better and get off that cane. But I think we've been seeing kind of compounding issues with access to medical care within the county. So it may be that people who were able to kind of improve and cycle off mobility devices are not able to do that at the same rate they used to be. Again, like access to physical therapy kind of gets worse the more people there are, because as far as I'm aware, like the number of physical therapists has not increased commensurate with the class. Less physical therapy, less ability to improve, more people on the class list. So I think there's a snowballing effect, but since I don't have access to like actual numbers, it's difficult for me to say.
I appreciate that. So my last question really is more of an observation. Has there been any, and of course, this dilemma of caring for this high needs population is foisted upon the sheriff's department. The sheriff doesn't put anyone in jail. He carries it out. Is there been any dialogue with the people who are increasing the number of people in the jails? And that would be prosecutors and judges. Any discussion with them about why are you sending us these old people who are disabled, who one would think are not really a danger to society, and to the extent that the 20-year-olds are. And yet they're being sent to jail. The taxpayers have to pay for it. There are, by my observations, very few, if any, operating escalators in Men's Central Jail. So the cost to the taxpayer of taking care of these high-need individuals, the courts keep sending to the sheriff and say, take care of them and comply with the settlement agreement. Is there any dialogue with the other people in theory in the system, prosecutors and judges, to say, you know, you've got a 60-year-old white male or African-American male who's disabled. It's hard for him to walk around. Does he need to be in jail pre-trial? Because the judges, in my experience, they don't even get a report on that. They don't have any idea the burden and the cost on society for medical care that we are providing to all these individuals. And it seems to be getting worse based upon your statistics.
It's one of the reasons why I think it's important LA County is a defendant in this case. So I think it's a very appropriate question to ask the county. I've raised in other settings that it's not clear, you know, is it that people with mobility disabilities have less access to diversion programs? Like, are there limitations to the types of programs that they can go into? Are there diversion programs that could be set up for people with mobility disabilities, given that LA County cannot house them in accordance with law?
And can't afford to pay for all these amazing costs that we're imposing on the taxpayers.
Right, and it'd be much less expensive to roll out diversion programs, staff up diversion programs that would be able to house those folks, and it's certainly much less expensive than any new jail.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Is there,
Can I just speak to some of that? Because I do have.
Sarah, yes, and then we'll go to Commissioner Giggins to wrap up.
So, first of all, in certain circumstances, if there is a death caused by such extreme negligence, it could theoretically be classified as a negligent homicide. If I'm going back to my criminal days, I think Mr. Newhouse would agree with that. But it would probably be a really rare circumstance for that type of death to be classified as a negligent homicide. So it'd be much more likely to be an accidental death, even if they were mobility impaired. But obviously, the coroner, the Department of Medical Examiner, makes that ultimate determination. To go to what Commissioner Newhouse was talking about, we have had numerous conversations with the Sheriff's Department. A lot of it is in the context of the Rutherford settlement agreement, which we are not the monitor for, but in OIG's opinion, right, and we're lawyers, but we're not lawyers for the county. We do think the Rutherford settlement and the court rulings from Rutherford actually do give the department quite a bit of leeway with regard to releasing people. And we have advocated for the release of more people, not just in the context of mobility impaired people or medically or people who require such a great standard of medical care that they really should be released so that they can get that medical care in their community, that there are mechanisms to do it. I mean, electronic monitoring is one mechanism, simply releasing people with adequate conditions. There's actually a new bail case out, which, to be honest, is really just a repeat of a bail case that was already in the California Supreme Court had already basically told judges, like, you can't tell people that the bail is $75,000 without looking at the financial ability of the person to pay.
That's the Humphreys case, which is not being followed by the Superior Court.
It is not, but there is a new case. There is a new case that said, when we said Humphreys, we really meant Humphreys. And I think that what happened is the judges saw a gap in Humphreys, and the new case, which I apologize, I don't remember the name of the case, but in the new case, it said, no, we really meant Humphreys. That means that now judges can't look to that gap and should in fact be looking at a defendant's financial ability to pay. Now, people are taken into custody days before they ever see a judge. Oftentimes, if you're arrested on a Thursday, you're not getting to court till Tuesday. So unless you're a juvenile, when you get there a little bit faster. But in any event, so it would actually be a better system to have all those people see a judge on the Thursday or Friday. Why? Because we have people who could be incarcerated, and obviously, you're talking about large numbers of people, right, who don't see a judge for days. And so no one's making a determination when bail is set as to what their financial ability to pay is. And all that there's judges who sort of review these probable cause determinations, and bail's just set at like, okay, this is the charge, this is their criminal history, and they just set an amount. In any event, the bottom line is that we have had numerous conversations with the Sheriff's Department, and we believe that the Sheriff's Department can release people regardless of whether a judge sets bail at an amount that is above what the Sheriff's Department says they'll release. The Sheriff's Department sets that amount of bail that they're released on, and the Sheriff's Department, and we've asked County Council to share this. I believe they sent some information to JCOD. The Sheriff's Department can release more people, and they should release more people. And the Board of Supervisors could also declare a state of emergency, much like the governor did to empty the prisons. The Board of Supervisors could also note that we have a lack of constitutionality in our jails, and could declare a state of emergency and say, these are the people that are going to be released
Thank you,
without
Gara.
a new jail.
Thank you. Commissioner Giggins, final question?
I have a comment and a suggestion. I'm going a little bit down memory lane. I've been here, as you've heard, 10 years, my buddy here. And from the inception of this commission, this issue has been relevant, an emergency. And there's been even though things have improved in some ways and there's a real acknowledgement of the crisis, but I remember when the Board of Supervisors made a plan and allocated a lot of money to do away with Men's Central Jail, and to create a facility that was also partially a health facility. So it would be jail and medical. And I remember we went on tours. We went down to I can't remember which one it was, a newer facility that had those accommodations near San Diego. All the commissioners piled on a bus. We went on a tour, and we were feeling, hey, maybe we can make some of these changes. Millions of dollars had been allocated to plans that were underway. Then there was a community uproar about how we should not just go create a hospital jail because it's still a jail. I may not be expressing that correctly right now. Respect for all the folks who are against it. It was a very complicated time grappling with this. So the board reversed their vote and stopped moving forward with that replacement, and a lot of money was lost. And I'm bringing this up, and okay, here's my suggestion. Here's why I'm bringing it up, is maybe that you should be looked at, because if we're going to proceed, and at some point, it's going to happen. MCJ is going to go. It's been 10 years, it hasn't gone yet, but it will. Hopefully it doesn't take another 10. But what replaces it is going to have a lot of community input, legislative input, political input, et cetera. So my suggestion is maybe, and since I'm leaving and I'm not going to do it, some people could go back and review that really interesting time of really making inroads to make the change, so that we maybe don't repeat the mistakes of the past, whichever they were. Anyway.
Thank you. Tail chasing is its own peril.
I will put on the hat of my colleague, Peter Leisberg, who was here during that time, and we have multiple letters that we wrote to the board and likely this commission to that time. But essentially what the community and the board decided is that it would be much less expensive to build out a system of care. So the mistake is that that system of care was not built out.
Correct.
A facility would be much more expensive. And like I said, the problems in this case are not limited to Men's Central Jail.
Right.
You build a new facility, we'll be back here in 10 years with a lawsuit that stems from issues in that facility. The issue is there's too many people, not enough diversion, mental care, medical care out in the community.
Thank you, Ms. Camacho. With that, we turn to public comment on the item. Robert, are there public comments lined up for this presentation?
Yes, we have 2 people signed up for public comment. Our first speaker is Berkeley Donovan, and if Olivia Fitzsimmons could take the line, please.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Thank you. My name is Berkeley Donovan. I'm with ACLU SoCal's, the Jails Conditions Advocate. As discussed and shown, the class member population has ballooned so far outside of what the department is capable of housing, and their care is falling by the wayside. In non-ADA housing areas, it's important to understand that what this means is that class members are denied accessible accommodations and often go without what they need to minimally function within the jail setting. I urge the department to take the OIG's recommendation to complete a comprehensive assessment of the whole Johnson class, because that would more successfully indicate what accommodations class members truly need and would highlight what they're currently being denied. For example, class members are not able to access their court or medical appointments because of broken infrastructure, not receiving requested physical therapy, slow and delayed first and secondary evaluations of classifications, which is the process to prescribe class members their mobility devices, poor shower and toilet conditions resulting in hospitalizations, and increased contact with CHS services, which often requires a lengthy wait time, and others that have been mentioned in these presentations. In doing so, it would be an opportunity for the department to consider decarceration efforts, as have been discussed, for those class members who could more successfully be treated and housed outside of the jails, as there is currently no adequate housing for them within the facilities. I strongly encourage this commission to push back on the development of the Correctional Care Center and instead support the jail closure implementation team's current 5-year plan to close Men's Central Jail without a replacement facility, and think through other solutions that don't result in building a new jail and that meet the needs of the class members. Thank you.
Thank you. Next comment?
Our next public comment is from Olivia Fitzsimmons. You can take the mic.
Welcome.
Hello, thank you. My name is Olivia Irene Fitzsimmons. That is I am she. I would like to make a comment because they noted that there is facilities that are shower issued. And I don't think that showers need to be a concern while in jail. What needs to be a concern is the lack of employee maintenance. So I was in jail in Los Angeles, and one thing that was lack is towels and washcloths. They didn't have towels and washcloths available. That was one thing. They also don't have any water. The amount of water one needs in a day is about a gallon, but healthy life, mental, blood flow, all of the above. And the water available is these 4-ounce, 8-ounce hospital cups that they give medication for. And that is the only time you're actually given water. And then that comes from a sink that they expect you to wash up in and drink water from, as well as brush your teeth and etc. And that's not very clean. I know in my household, we had a sink for water in the kitchen, but we also buy water, use water from a well, because the sink also has soap, which my household, I'm allergic to all types of chemicals. So is my mother with eczema. So we don't drink from the sink, and we don't drink from the sink that we brush our teeth in, because we spit in there and throw up in there and put our boogers in there, and then we're living with someone else. So it's mandatory, in my opinion, for the jails to, one, not focus on showers, but to focus on sinks that are not sinks, but what are they called? Water fountains that provide a gallon of water, fresh water every day. There was a plumbing system issue in the jail where there was leaking from the top. So the water from there is not suitable for consumption. So that's a major thing, as well as staff accountability. Staff do go through the questionnaires where you have to write them out, and they tell you to do that, which is good, and it takes less than a month. I got my
Thank
response in 2 weeks. Thank you.
That concludes public comment.
I want to thank all participants in this dialogue. We will continue our discussion of settlements at our next meeting. We look forward to the participation of the department, as well as to outside experts, and to those involved in litigation and monitoring of the settlements. Thanks to all the parties for today's presentation, and we will continue to watchdog and whistleblow where necessary in this exercise of oversight. Next up, we want to have a second presentation regarding human trafficking. And it's my pleasure to welcome to the COC the outside expert whom we've engaged, guest speaker Paloma Bustos of the Loyola Law School. Ms. Bustos, thank you for being with us for the COC and to discuss human trafficking, a presentation that we've long awaited.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the commissions for giving attention to human trafficking today, specifically to a type of trafficking that unfortunately often goes unrecognized by law enforcement, by service providers, and even by their own family members. And that is something that we know as labor trafficking by forced criminality. This is a type of trafficking where a person is forced to commit a crime as a form of labor. And our goal is really to give context about some of the youth that are being repeatedly arrested and engaged in the juvenile justice system that may actually be experiencing trafficking. We also want to recognize how systems can unintentionally harm youth when they identify them as offenders or delinquents, when in fact they may actually be experiencing human trafficking. If we can go to the next slide. And because this is our first time that we have been here today, I just wanted to give a quick background in terms of like who we are. My name is Paloma Bustos, and I'm a policy associate with the Sonita Jane Anti-Trafficking Initiative. We are based out of Loyola Law School, and we focus strictly on advocating for policies to prevent human trafficking and support human trafficking survivors. That means that we do not provide any direct services, including legal services or social services. Our work is grounded on a public health approach and an anti-carceral lens, and we focus on the root causes of human trafficking to create systemic change and to prevent it before it starts. That includes recognizing that factors such as immigration status, racism, poverty, and other types of inequalities can contribute to someone becoming increasingly at risk of trafficking. And because of that, we focus on supporting communities that have historically faced the greatest barriers and challenges in accessing justice and services. This includes people of color, immigrants, LGBTQ plus individuals, people with disabilities, and people living in poverty. And to do this work, we actually rely on our own experiences as direct service providers. So even though we do not provide direct services through this program, those of us who are part of the SJI initiative have experience providing direct services. I myself actually have spent 15 years providing direct services prior to doing policy work. Part of that time was actually working with domestic violence survivors, sexual assault survivors, human trafficking survivors. And a part of that before coming to Loyola Law School was actually working, responding to calls for domestic violence with the Los Angeles Police Department as part of the domestic abuse response team. So I'm actually very familiar with the work of Patty Giggins here and the commission. And so if we can go to the next slide, please. Yes, thank you so much. So in defining human trafficking, one of the observations that I really wanted to share with this group is that in an effort to increase public awareness around the issue of labor trafficking by forced criminality, we have actually been engaging with community-based organizations that are receiving funding from the Department of Youth Development, through their diversion programs. And so one of the things that I've noticed in trying to engage with these organizations and presenting to these organizations to build, again, awareness around this issue, we've noticed that the majority of the service providers working with youth in these diversions programs do not have the foundational knowledge of human trafficking, let alone training on what labor trafficking by forced criminality looks like. Now, we're not saying that these organizations should not be receiving funding. It's actually quite the opposite. We actually believe that they should be receiving training, specialized trainings, to be able to identify these youth who often come into contact with law enforcement but do not get identified. Because they are trusted community-based organizations, but they unfortunately do not have the training in human trafficking. And so, for instance, one of the things that I have come across is that much of the information or what they think they know about human trafficking, even including with the general public, unfortunately still comes from movies, social media, right? What we see in the newspapers, and it's usually shown as someone that is being kidnapped, taken to another country, and locked in a room. I know when I met Commissioner Mosley, we also talked about the images that are continued to be seen when there is public awareness around human trafficking. And that's usually something where we see, let's say, women being depicted in shackles, or women and children with their mouths covered, or we also see them behind bars, right? But unfortunately, what this does when we're using these types of images, it gives this impression that in order for someone to experience human trafficking, there needs to be some sort of physical captivity. And that really makes it hard for us to understand what the realities of human trafficking are, because that's not what most people experience when it comes to human trafficking. And that's also important to note that, and I know there's a lot of lawyers here in the room and there's law enforcement, but for those of us who might not be too familiar with human trafficking, being in physical captivity, that's not what defines human trafficking. What defines human trafficking is the use of force, fraud, and coercion for the purpose of subjecting someone to perform work or commercial sex. In plain language, right, that means that someone is using violence, lies, false promises, or threats to force someone to work or perform sex acts. And the reason I say that is, again, I don't want to assume that everybody knows what the definition of human trafficking just based on the experiences that I've had. Another important thing to note about human trafficking is that it doesn't require movement. It's not about movement. That means that someone does not have to be transported from one city to another, from one state to another, from one country to another, right? Human trafficking can happen in someone's own neighborhood, in someone's own communities, in our own cities. Another thing to note about human trafficking is that it's not about whether someone agreed or said yes to doing something, right? Someone may actually be doing what they were told because they are using force, fraud, or coercion that we talked about, right? And it may be a situation where someone does it out of survival. That means that because they are dependent on someone for food, or because of a place to stay, a place to sleep, they were offered a job, they feel forced to stay in that situation. Again, there's the threats and the violence as well, right? So for law enforcement and service providers, one of the most helpful ways to think about human trafficking is what would have happened if they said no, if this youth said no, or what if it's, or was it safe for them to say no? And so most people are familiar with the different category, the 3 categories that you see on the screen in terms of when we're talking about human trafficking. That includes sex trafficking, the commercial sexual exploitation of children, Most people, that's the categories that they're familiar with because that's what we're mostly used to hearing about if we do know about human trafficking, right? For instance, even now with the major sporting events coming up that we have with the FIFA World Cup and with the Olympic Games that are coming up, a lot of the conversations often around that center on sex trafficking, even though there's no empirical evidence showing that there's an increase of sex trafficking during major sporting events. What we do see is labor trafficking. Because of the temporary work that is being brought in for these major games in preparation, right? We see construction, we see hospitality, domestic work increasing, and that's where we see labor trafficking, we see an increased risk of labor trafficking during those events. And so the reason I say that is because labor trafficking, as opposed to when we're talking about sex trafficking and the commercial sexual exploitation of children, labor trafficking doesn't get that much attention, right? Where labor trafficking is something where we're seeing those same elements, right, that we're seeing in sex trafficking and CSEC. We're seeing forced fraud or coercion, where someone is being forced to perform work or provide services, and this often done in unsafe or conditions with little to no pay. And so and this can happen in any type of industry. We can happen in agriculture, domestic work. It could happen in construction companies. But a part of labor trafficking is that the activities that someone is being made to perform can also be activities that are considered illegal under the law. And that's where we get under forced criminality. If we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So when we're talking about labor trafficking by forced criminality, as I mentioned, is when someone is being forced to commit a crime through the use of force, fraud, or coercion to perform work or services. And those services that are being provided are considered illegal. This could be, examples of this could be the cultivation or sale of drugs. It could be smuggling drugs and weapons. It could be shoplifting scams or other crimes committed that are being committed really for the benefit of the trafficker. And so one important thing to note about labor trafficking by forced criminality is because the activity itself is illegal. This is something that traffickers take advantage of in the sense that they use that to keep someone under control, in the sense that they might tell, let's say, the young person, if you call the police, you're the one that's going to get arrested, right? And so, and when we're talking about this type of trafficking, the crime itself becomes a form of control. And so one of the places, can you go to the next slide, please? And so one of the places where we actually see, I'm moving really quickly. One of the places where we see forced criminality being missed is in gangs. Because when we're looking at gangs, we're seeing that traffickers exert control, pressure, or threaten someone to commit certain crimes or do something that really benefits the trafficker. And unfortunately, this often gets missed because we assume that the youth made a choice to be in this gang. We also focus on the offense itself instead of asking who was benefited from it. And we also, unfortunately, immediately label someone, in this case, a young person, as an offender instead of asking if there was someone that was controlling their actions, their behaviors. And so for many young people, what may look like loyalty or affiliation to us, for a young person, it might actually be, it's really about staying safe. So that means that they're trying to avoid getting hurt, being targeted, or they need a place to stay, or they may also be trying to protect their families. So instead of just simply asking whether someone is gang involved or whether we need to be asking who controls them, who benefits, and what happens if they don't follow through.
Ms. Bustos? Yeah. I just have to note that we are time constrained for the remaining part of our agenda. But Your presentation has sparked great interest on the part of the commission, and it's an issue that we look forward to coming back to, especially in light of the World Cup this summer and the expected arrival of millions to Los Angeles for the Olympics in 2028. And we know from your report and other evidence what a catalyst for human trafficking such international events can be. So we look forward to having you back, possibly this summer, for a second presentation that could actually be part of the COC's own work and be the basis for an upcoming forum on this issue. But we want you to know that this is something we intend to stay active and vigilant on, and to perhaps guide supervisors and other county partners in tackling alongside you. So
Thank you.
we appreciate the depth of your presentation and hope to have you back.
Okay. Is that the end of the presentation?
If possible, we'll have you back, but we do have public comment.
Yes.
Mr. Before we shift there, yes.
Yes.
I just wanted to, I'm a clinical social worker, and I
Yes.
just wanted, I appreciate this report. I think in December, I went on a ride along at Century Station, and actually one of the deputy was sharing a story with me about a young 18-year-old female who he had engaged with in, outreach, and she was being trafficked by gang members in the area and was homeless. And I can't remember the name of the team, but, there was a county team that, they triaged with her and got her off the street. And so this, topic I think is important as far as, from an oversight body and how, traffic is playing out in different jurisdictions of sheriff's jurisdiction in LA County. So thank you. And I really appreciate when you do come back.
No, I really appreciate that. And I look very much forward to coming back if possible. Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Bustos. Are there any other public comments on this item, Mr. Flores?
Yes, we have one public comment online from RM. RM, you've been unmuted.
Service training. It's the better one.
Thank you.
Is it? I hope so.
And I'll just note, we've lost two commissioners. Commissioner Cooper has had to exit, as did Commissioner McBride. We still, however, have a quorum, and we are looking forward to maintaining that quorum for our final item of action.
I have to leave it at photo.
Let's go.
We do have one comment to finish here before we move on to the item, but we have 6 commissioners. We can still afford to lose one and maintain quorum.
Okay, we have we'll go back to RM. We have another online public comment from Bernice Lopez. Bernice, you've been unmuted.
6.
Hello?
We hear both of you. Welcome.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Bernice Lopez, and I'm a resident in this community and a victim. And I'm here because what happened to me exposed a gap in the system that no one wants to talk about. On March 10th, 2023, law enforcement used military-grade equipment on my residence. Drones, tactical tools, holes were broken through my ceilings, walls were knocked down. My neighbors and I were forced from our homes, and 4 days later, I learned that a man had died by suicide in my home.
I'm sorry, Bernice. You're going to have to make general public comment at the end.
Okay.
Okay. RM, you've been unmuted.
I also have general public comment. When is that? Because it's already 12:35.
Yes, we will hear general public comment after the next item. We will do 1 minute of general public comments, 90 seconds if time allows, following that item.
Okay. And we have one public comment in person. Olivia Fitzsimmons, if you could please take the podium.
Is it on this item? Thank you. Yes.
I am Olivia Irene Fitzsimmons, and I am aware that I walk neighborhoods in the North Hollywood area, and I've turned in multiple body parts of human remains. Multiple being also baby remains, which is something that was detrimental to my mind and well-being for a while, but I didn't go to substance use or chemicals. But one thing I noticed is that there is not a camera view ready of break-ins or security allotments of doors and windows provided by the city of non-housed units. So there's houses in the area that are getting broken into that no one is being alerted to because there's only
I'm
maybe
sorry,
one
Ms.
or two
Fitzsimmons,
occupants.
your public comment has to relate to this item,
It
so you
does.
can make general.
So human trafficking individuals are staying in these housing units, and they're going in between the housing and in the motels. And then they're not being
Ms. Simmons, you can you can make public comment at the end. It has to relate to this item.
of human trafficking trends, showing that the housing is being a part of the human trafficking trends. So they're transporting individuals that are minors, babies, adults, women, children, and boys, and then in the properties that they don't pay for with lease or what is that called? The housing when you own a property and you can either rent it or pay the lease or the rent. They're trafficking individuals illegally. One, they're breaking and entering into properties, and then they're also killing in these units, and they clean with bleach, whatnot have you, and they bury people in these units, and then body parts will come out because they'll traffic through grocery carts or wagons or cars, and they're just like, you know what, just leave that behind. But the teen is not as important, but having cameras in the area is. And that's what I have so far, is that there needs to be security personnel of camera footage for these human trafficking victims, because they are victims, because they end up dead or they end up being in a disability to watch over people that are being human trafficked.
Thank you. That concludes public comment on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Flores. With that, this discussion item or this education presentation has concluded. We will move on to item number 11A on the agenda. It's a recommendation that comes from the governance ad hoc for the commission to approve a project and a good resolution framed by the executive director for the enhancement of the commission's internal process involving tracking Board of Supervisors motions for follow-up by this commission. We want to make sure that we maintain the deadlines in those directives for follow-up and the responsibilities that may include community forums and for the commission members to fulfill those when under ad hoc committees when necessary. The staff and other departments may also be engaged under those directives. But this consistent internal process would alleviate any failures of tracking. It would also overcome any lack of assignment for appropriate follow-through. It would coordinate across other ad hocs and staff responsibilities, and it would ensure timely report backs to the supervisors and to other sibling entities in the county. The draft proposal for this tracking resolution is in the agenda. This is an action item. I just want to ask, might there be a motion from a commissioner to approve this proposal for enhancing the internal procedures of the commission?
I shall move.
Thank you, Commissioner Harris. Is there a second?
A second.
I see Commissioner Giggins seconding. With that, this item is open for discussion. Is there any other comment from commissioners? Seeing none, is there public comment on this item, Robert?
There is no public comment.
With that, we can proceed to a vote on the motion. The motion before us is to approve the resolution framed by the executive director in consultation with the governance ad hoc committee of the COC to improve the internal tracking and follow through on supervisors' directives to this commission and the effectuation of responsibilities identified in those board motions. When I call your name, please say your position on this resolution. We have 6 commissioners present. Can you call the roll, please, Mr. Flores?
Co-Vice Chair Callaway?
Aye.
Commissioner Cooper? Absent. Co-Vice Chair Garcia?
Aye.
Commissioner Giggins?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Hicks, absent. Commissioner McBride, absent. Commissioner Newhouse,
Aye.
and Chair Johnson.
Yes.
With that, we have 6 ayes and 3 absences. The motion to approve the executive director's proposal for enhancement of the commission's internal process regarding LA County's Board of Supervisors motion passes.
Thank you. And thank you, commissioners. With that, we turn to non-agenda public comments. I believe we have 7 of them, so we will be able to allow the full 2 minutes for allotted public comments on the understanding that we have 7 such comments.
Our first online public comment is from RM. RM, you've been unmuted.
Good afternoon, commissioners. I am here today because I was going to share my story, but ultimately, as a taxpayer and voter, you all were voted in with Measure R because the community is tired of the sheriff's department being able to investigate themselves. I think collectively as a community, we can agree that this cannot happen. The chaos that you are all dealing with today is a result of the sheriff's department not having commissioned oversight. We voted you in so that you can investigate the sheriffs. It is chaos and corruption, the fact that they are able to investigate themselves. As voters that put you in the positions that you are in, the least you could do is provide us some transparency on this matter and put it on the agenda, because the community does not know where you guys are in the process of making sure that your most important task, which is investigating the sheriffs directly without they having the ability to investigate themselves. We have been asking for independent investigation of the sheriffs since the 90s. It is unacceptable that even now we have to beg for you guys to put something like this and put transparency on the agenda. The people want to know, where are you all in the process of Measure R, where you guys are the sole investigators of the sheriffs? Because the sheriffs are a gang ultimately, and they investigate themselves and find themselves not guilty. It is unacceptable. I am sure that today you will hear from many people who have their lives and livelihoods interrupted by these mentally ill sheriffs with guns.
Our next online public comment is from Bernice Lopez. Bernice, you've been unmuted.
My name is Bernice Lopez, and I'm a resident of this community and a victim. I am here because of what happened to me exposed a gap in the system that no one wants to talk about. On March 10, 2023, law enforcement used military-grade equipment on my residence of 10 years. Drones, tactical tools, holes broken through my ceilings. My neighbors and I were forced from our homes. And 4 days later, I learned that a man had died by suicide in my home, while all of this force and all of this technology was deployed around it. Not one officer called me. Not one person from the agency acknowledged my home, my loss, or my family. The one resource I was pointed to told me to just call it as a loss and handed me $900 towards temporary housing, hygiene, food, clothes, and transportation. $900. The system that exists right now for people like me, this is the system that exists for people like me. There are laws that authorize the use of military equipment in our neighborhoods, bills, policies, entire frameworks built for what the law enforcement is allowed to do. But there is not one meaningful law, not one funded resource built around protecting the people whose lives are destroyed when this equipment is used. And now I stand before this committee, and I am given 2 minutes to speak. 2 minutes to describe the trauma that has not stopped. 2 minutes to explain the total destruction of my home, the loss of everything I had, and the death of a man inside my walls. 2 minutes to make this committee understand that I have been living with no support, no accountability, no answers since the day of the operation. Since the day that operation ended. The agency that caused this faces no such limit. They have attorneys, reports, policies, and all the time in the world to define what they did. But I, the victim, am given 2 minutes. That alone tells you everything that is wrong with the system. If an
Thank
agency
you. Our final public comment online is from Deanna Brock. Deanna, you've been unmuted.
I'm sorry.
Deanna.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I just want to thank the commission for your continued advocacy for transparency within the department, especially with the use of excessive force complaints. Measure R did pass AB 847. All of you have been so behind fighting for these rights for the community. I know it's been an uphill battle trying to obtain records for my son, Emmett Brock, Joseph Perez, and Andres Guardado. So I do see that you are fighting for the community, and I just wanted to make sure that that was heard. This has been a long uphill battle, and we appreciate you not giving up and still fighting for transparency. Thank you.
Thank you. Our first in-person public comment is from CJ Nord. CJ, if you could please take the microphone, and if Raquel Derfler can take the cue.
I had a mental health crisis in 2020. I'm not ashamed of that. I was never a danger to myself or anybody else. Through that experience, I saw firsthand the failings of our law enforcement, municipal, and mental health systems. During that time, my home was burglarized while I was inside. I heard the intruder speaking on the phone. I know who he is. When I screamed, he ran. My alarm brought the sheriff's department, but instead of believing me, they claimed that I set the alarm off myself. They cuffed me, took my dog, and I lost my freedom for 18 days. Even worse, the deputy wrote false statements on official forms, lies that still harm me today. If you were me, would you call 911 for help knowing this could happen again? For 6 years, I've asked for help from elected officials and agencies, filed every grievance, followed every rule. Nothing worked. These systems meant to protect citizens only protect themselves, in my experience. I've served my community as a neighborhood watch captain and public safety commissioner. I was honored with the Bellflower Bravo Award for bravery. When the world was shouting, defund the police, I fought to raise sales taxes for more local law enforcement, and I won. If this could happen to me, a respected community members, how many more has this happened to without justice? I have a voice. They do not. It takes all my courage to face you today, but after 6 years of silence from the system, including this commission, I saw no other choice. My request is simple. Have the courage to work with me to fix the systemic problems that allowed this failure. I believe it's possible because we have a sheriff committed to transparency and accountability now. We didn't then.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Raquel Derfler, and if Steve Hill could please take the line.
Hello, Raquel Derfler, cancel the contract. I'm actually now going to share an experience from a source you wouldn't think would be connected to us. So I'm going to read what this individual shared with me. Good afternoon. My name is Lori Atwater. I'm a former California law enforcement officer and longtime first responder advocate with 34 years in law enforcement recovery communities. In 2020, a property-related incident on a 15-acre ranch on the outskirts of Little Rock became a 6-year fight for accountability. My home was breached without legal justification. I was taken to the ground, aggressively handcuffed and injured, and then had a rifle pointed at me by a deputy while I refused to waive my Miranda rights. The deputy was later terminated and Brady listed. 3 shots had been fired earlier at a coyote on a rural property, not at any person, yet my lawful Second Amendment firearm ownership was treated as though it made me mentally unstable or dangerous. Allegations later collapsed, yet I was subjected to an unsubstantiated psychiatric detention despite no history Beyond long-standing PTSD, followed by years of disputed administrative labeling that destroyed my licensing, finances, reputation, stability, and health. What shocked me most was how difficult it became to get institutions to acknowledge reality once harmful narratives became administratively convenient. Most good officers want accountability and reform because they understand retaliatory culture and institutional self-protection damaged morale, recruitment, public trust, and legitimacy for everyone. But courts, oversight commissions, public records laws, motions, complaints, and public comments are the lawful accountability mechanisms available to ordinary citizens. These are the mechanisms I use, and if that makes me a nuisance, then so be it. I'm not the only one. Thank you.
Thank you. If Steve Hill can please take the podium, and if we can have Patricia Mendoza take the line. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Steve Hill. I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran and a retired correctional peace officer for the state of California. I was arrested on March 7th, 2022. I had my weapons confiscated, and it was all due to speaking out publicly, and it was in retaliation from former Sheriff Alex Villanueva. And this is why you can't let the Sheriff's Department investigate themselves. There was an OIG investigation conducted, and the Sheriff's Department said, oh, we're not the ones that arrested him. But they had the Department of Justice arrest me. They told me that I was on an involuntary hold and that I was in a mental institution. After 4 years, I finally gotten into a courtroom, and they have me in a courtroom for people who were mentally institutionalized. And for the record, I haven't been in a hospital since I was born. I've came down here, I've been speaking to this commission for 4 years, asking you to please look into my arrest. There is a judge that is hearing this case now that finds my arrest in this situation so interesting that we're going to have a special hearing on June 12th, just so I can have my day in court. I'm asking the commission one more time, because Alex Villanueva is on the ballot to be sheriff again. I'm asking the commission one more time, please look into my arrest. It is government corruption. It's been covered up for 4 years. I'll come back next month to speak. That'll be my last time speaking to you. Thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Patricia Mendoza, and followed by Jesus Gomez. Jesus, if you could please take the cue.
Okay. Can someone help me? Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Hill.
Hello, thank you. I'm here today to speak regarding my friend, Ms. Gomez, and her family. 2 months ago, I met her at the Norwalk County, and she lost her property 2 years ago. She hired people to do a short sale. They didn't do nothing for her. They committed fraud. Then she hired people, another office, to do bankruptcy and or other. And they also didn't do anything. They didn't protect her property. She lost it. She's paid these people until now $56,000. But the reason I'm here is because I decided to help her, and it's taking me 2 months to investigate everything. And I'm here today because I'm going to be filing a complaint regarding the sheriff in the city of Almonte. He takes care of the 5-day notice eviction, including Saturday and Sunday, where they put the notice on the door with red letters, and then the sheriffs will show up, for example, Monday, and they didn't do none of that. So the new buyer that bought her property, I don't know how he got connected with the sheriff, and they did everything hush hush under the table. So then that sheriff and the city of Monte went across the street and hired 2 police officers from Almonte, Almonte, and they knocked on the door. Mrs. Gomez's daughter that's disabled and handicapped was there by herself. They made her cry and they bullied her and harassed her. I went back to the court, me and Ms. Gomez, to the West Covina Court where the case was being handled as an eviction and it became a default. And then I went to the courthouse in El Monte. Nobody was hired. These people, the new landlord investor never paid the sheriff's service. So he did everything hush hush by this corrupt sheriff in El Monte.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Jesus Gomez.
Is it okay if I interpret for her? She doesn't speak English.
Yes, if you're willing to do that on an ad hoc basis, we appreciate it.
What do you mean hot basis? I don't know what you mean.
Please proceed. Yes, thank you.
To me, it's important for people to educate themselves and, there is hope. And what she wants is the support of this committee to investigate her matter, because after I've helped her with all her case, I'm going to be sending this case to the district attorney and to other, and she believes that everybody's corrupt and that no one's going to help. But it's important that people educate themselves, especially the Mexican and Hispanic community, for me. And all she needs is the support. And if you can let me know who should I be sending these letters to regarding the sheriff in El Monte, because they did tell me if it's the police department in El Monte belongs to this district, the sheriff's. ¿Hay algo que quiera decirles? I'm interpreting if there's something else she would like to say.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Jesús Ávila de Gómez y es muy difícil cuando uno ya tiene su casa y a nuestra edad vienen y de repente no tenemos ni siquiera el equity de nuestra casa. Esto le pasó a mi familia Ávila Gómez. Espero que se toquen el corazón y nos ayuden en lo que esté en sus manos y sea posible. De antemano, gracias.
Hello, I'm Mrs. Gomez. Good afternoon, and thank you for your time. It's very hard to buy a property and suddenly you pay all these people to help you and you put all their faith and you lose your equity, which it's like $230,000. And she asks us for your help in this matter. Thank you.
Can you clarify for the record her name?
Jesus Gomez. J-E-S-U-S. Gómez.
¿Hay segundo apellido o no?
Jesús Ávila de Gómez.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our final public comment in person is from Olivia Fitzsimmons.
Hello. I am Olivia Irene Fitzsimmons, and I'm aware that I'm extending on the agenda item 10B, but also on agenda item number 12, non-agenda public comments. I have a criminal protective order from last year on assaults of domestic violence. Under M as in mother, A as in apple, 079850. I am protected as Olivia Fitzsimmons and am protected from a child being withheld. That order of protection ended in September of 2025, and it got violated over 20 times. I sent the police commissioner email, as well as a detective, as well as the chief of police of LAPD, and I would like to share that with the Sheriff Civilian Oversight. But going forward, Agenda 10B, I would like you to know that camera footage around the city is very important. AI camera footage, meaning able to pinpoint emotional regulation through heat aura and substance allergen. Having a medical record of someone's allergens would allow you to see how they are sweating and due to what? but also their emotional regulation allows them to sweat as well. And that can be pinpoint through AI statistics, and it congregated down so that there's individuals that are in a house and born here and 50 years old and getting translated as someone from Guatemala for their equity of housing. That is something called human trafficking. And that is something that could be ratified in camera footage, as well as rewording how services for homeless, which means not to have a home anywhere due to orphan of death of the family, which is not accurate for everyone. Change that into guest services. And then that would change away gang violence, gang paraphernalia, because they want to be included. And that is all I have to say for today, but I'll add that to the next agenda, I hope, because that is something that is major in the city of Los Angeles and California. Thank you.
And that concludes public comment.
Thank you, Robert. I want to thank those who waited for the duration of this meeting to make public comment here today. I want to thank all who have weighed in on our agenda and provided their own remarks on the work and undertakings of this commission. I want to thank all commissioners for your input today. We did lose a quorum, so this is not a formal adjournment recognition. It is a recognition that the commission lost quorum and that we are now calling to an end this May meeting of the Civilian Oversight Commission, recognizing we will be back for our June 18th meeting, and we hope to see many of you online for our Icy Conditions Forum on June the 10th. Thank you all for being part of this work. We will see you next month. Bye-bye.